as soon as my podcast starts to pick up.
How do you see your future?
Hermoso. Veo mi futuro con
I see my future with a house with a giant pool, being able to build a house for my mom. Hopefully one day all my projects will take off and I'll be able to travel, living off my art. I imagine myself being an old lady, drinking my wine, painting and selling my paintings all over the world.
Vendiendo cuadros en todo el mundo.
Assignment was presented by me, Sofia Bettiza. The producer was Bob Howard.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining our team for the show this morning. We're going to have a beautiful day in Winnipeg. Sunny today and a high of 20 degrees after a gorgeous night here in the city last night. Well, let's say good morning to Sierra Sanders and to Corey Funk, who are directing the show together this morning somewhat, because Sierra's going to be taking over in a little bit. And so Corey will also be on the air covering your commute. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi, behind our controls today. And Abby is, of course, on air covering weather throughout the program, so we'll talk to him in a bit. And good morning to Brad Lilly, saying hello to you on YouTube this morning. Brad is our YouTube and video streaming producer. It is 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. The show is Information Radio, morning show. We're on until 8:37 a.m. Please reach out if you have a problem on your commute today, 788-3093. Let's get started officially with your day's headlines. Heather Wells is here live in our news center.
Good morning. Well, former Premier Heather Stephenson is not apologizing after Manitoba's Ethics Commissioner said she violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner's report says Stephenson and two of her PC cabinet ministers acted improperly after losing the 2023 election. It says all three pushed for the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new NDP government took office. Stephenson insists she did nothing wrong. Manitoba's largest school division has had to scramble as it welcomes a surge of newcomers into its classrooms this year. Winnipeg School Division saw a bump of 829 students. It's not alone. The head of a rural school division, Morden's Western Division, also is bursting. It says their division is also bursting at the seams, and we're going to hear from both of them through the morning here on CBC News. Your next news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather. Let's get into what else is happening in the weather. Just briefly here, Brandon is clearing today with a high of 19, and Thompson is mainly sunny and a high of 20. So you can see that weather map Brad's put up on YouTube. It's looking really mighty fine. Well, this morning in the program, with a possible Canada Post strike looming, we will hear how and if it will impact you at all. So stay tuned for that. Also, yesterday we heard from a postal worker who says he does not want to go out on strike. Today we're going to hear from another perspective from another Canada Post worker. So we'll have that covered and much more. Right now, though, let's plug into what's happening on World Report at 6.
On Q.
I'm Talia Schlenger sitting in for Tom Power. The show The Gilmore Girls put Yannick Truesdale on the map as an actor. When its creator, Amy Sherman Palladino, called him up 20 years later to join her new show, Étoile, Yannick jumped at the chance.
When you have some validation sprinkled here and there, you're really appreciative of it.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Milikar, two young representatives of the State of Israel, were murdered a few hours ago in an horrific terrorist attack in Washington.
Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar identifying the victims in last night's shooting. 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington were killed in the U.S. Capitol. Sa'ar says there is a direct line between the attack and rising anti-Semitism around the world since the October 7th attacks. Steve Futterman has the details.
The killings took place outside of Washington's Capitol Jewish Museum, where a reception was taking place for diplomats. Washington, D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum.
The motive for the shooting appears to be connected with the ongoing war in Gaza. As the suspect was apprehended, he began shouting, "Free, free Palestine!" This person encountered the suspect after the shooting. He spoke with the BBC.
He's like, I did this for Gaza, free Palestine. There's only one solution, Intifada revolution.
The two people killed were a couple who worked at the Israeli embassy. Here's Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Yahiel Leiter.
It's a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says prosecutors are already on the case.
We will follow the facts, we will follow the law, and this defendant, if charged, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement, "We are witnessing the terrible price of anti-Semitism against Israel." Donald Trump spoke with the Israeli ambassador on the phone and expressed condolences. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Members of Canada's Conservative Party are still smarting from their federal election loss, and many have told our colleagues at Radio-Canada they want to see changes at the top, starting with Pierre Poilievre firing his national campaign manager, Jenny Byrne. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, what have we learned?
Marcia, our Radio-Canada colleague, Christiane Noel, spoke to 12 Conservatives, did not name them, enabling them to speak frankly, and they were scathing, saying after the Conservatives blew a double-digit lead in the polls to lose the election, heads have to roll. And yet there hasn't been any accountability from National Campaign Manager Jenny Byrne, a private contractor whose exact job, now that the general election is over, is unclear, except that she's personally tight with Pierre Poilievre. Radio-Canada heard that she treats people like, quote, garbage, that her behavior at party headquarters was toxic and angry, that she didn't communicate well with teams in the field. Byrne is apparently responsible for Poilievre's negative tone because everything one said is a war for her. And she's blamed for Poilievre's strained relationship with provincial premiers like Doug Ford and Tim Houston. One said if she remains, they can't support the leaders staying on. Another said if she remains, the caucus may lose patience. And this caucus has enabled its ability under the Reform Act to vote on whether to remove its leader as the parliamentary session proceeds. When caucus met 2 weeks ago, Poilievre brushed aside questions about Byrne, saying Conservatives won't grow by excluding people. He will face a review vote at the party's next convention, an event not scheduled until next year, but Poilievre loyalists are now pushing to move it up to this fall and move it out to a venue in Alberta where his support's stronger. If the convention endorses him, it would be harder for MPs to justify removing him.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. One of Romania's top courts has rejected George Simeon's request to annul the results of the presidential election. The hard-right candidate decisively lost the race on Sunday, but Simeon alleged there was foreign interference in the vote. Romania's constitutional court unanimously decided his request to annul the results was unfounded. A U.S. federal judge is admonishing the White House for deporting 8 people to South Sudan against court orders. Several of those people do not have Sudanese citizenship, and the judge says they were deported without due process. The Trump administration says all 8 were convicted of violent crimes. Now police in South Sudan say those who do not have citizenship will be deported again. Here is spokesperson James Manday.
When they arrive, they will be investigated, the truth will be established, and it will be again reported to their correct country. The result of the investigation will determine the action.
The acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says some of the deportees are from Cuba, Laos, Mexico, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Todd Lyons says their home countries would not take them back. There's been another unusual twist in the sexual assault trial of 5 former Team Canada hockey players. It involves a witness for the prosecution and his inability to remember details that would harm his former junior teammates. Karen Pauls has more.
Brett Howden is a key player for the Vegas Golden Knights, but in a London courtroom, his testimony is under scrutiny. He's a Crown witness and has not been charged, but the prosecution says he's pretending not to remember details that would hurt his former World Junior teammates, details he has already provided in previous statements to investigators, details the Crown wants on the record. The judge ruled late Tuesday that Howden is not feigning or being insincere, but agreed there are some inconsistencies in his testimony. The Crown wants permission to challenge him on that.
Because the evidence that was coming out at trial was not what they anticipated.
Criminal defense lawyer Sam Puhala isn't involved in the case, but is watching it closely.
Through cross-examination, you can suggest answers. Here's what you said in your statement. Here's what you were saying earlier.
Nick Cake is a former Crown prosecutor, now a criminal defense lawyer who's also following this trial. He's not surprised memories have faded.
And witnesses' memory, of course, is of paramount importance. It all goes to their credibility and their reliability. But we're talking to people who witnessed something way back in 2018, and they're now being asked to remember what it is they said to someone about that in 2018.
Both lawyers say it's important to have these legal discussions to make sure all the evidence is being presented and the law is being applied to try and prevent appeals later on. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Quebec's official bird could soon be listed as an at-risk species. An independent committee of wildlife scientists recommended the designation for the snowy owl in their latest report. As Gloria Enriquez tells us, climate change is among the factors contributing to the bird's decline.
A 3-year-old snowy owl is perking up as a vet carries him to the examination room. The owl is recovering at the Université de Montréal's Veterinary Center after Dr. Guy Fitzgerald and his team had to amputate his wing.
Pretty good evolution of the wound.
The wing was damaged when the bird flew into a fence, just one of the many dangers snowy owls face, and that Dr. Fitzgerald says have led it to being identified as a threatened species.
We see lots of snowy owls hit by cars, they can hit power lines.
Other factors include climate change affecting their habitats. The snowy owl nests in the Arctic and breeds mostly on the tundra, but ventures further south in the winter when prey in the north becomes scarce. It can be found in every province and territory in Canada, but experts say its population has been steadily declining
by over 40%.
Louise Blight was part of the independent committee that evaluated the animal's risk as threatened.
It's in the position of potentially becoming endangered in future, so we should be concerned about that.
The snowy owl isn't on Canada or Quebec's lists of threatened species yet, but a spokesperson for the provincial government told CBC that it will be evaluating the status of the bird and what steps to take next. Back in the clinic, the owl is recovering and will eventually be sent to a wildlife refuge or a zoo. Gloria Enriquez, CBC News, Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec.
Students graduating from the University of Maryland receive their diplomas tonight. They are about to enter the workforce at a time of economic uncertainty and political turmoil. But they'll be getting some valuable advice at their commencement address from this guy.
Your life is in your hands, and nobody can make you a success except you. Believing in others is easy, but it's believing in yourself and your dreams that's the real trick.
Kermit the Frog speaking to CNN there. And why not give him the commencement address? He is an environmental advocate, a best-selling author, and an international superstar. Plus, his Muppets creator, Jim Henson, graduated from Maryland back in 1960. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
We were talking about that in the newsroom yesterday, wondering, though, how you would feel if you were actually the person that might have been the valedictorian, and then they sprung it on you that it was Kermit the Frog in your place. Might have a different perspective. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on the morning show. This is Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, an air quality statement has just been issued. Abby's going to tell us where that has just come out. We'll have that in our weather pack in a moment, but we're looking for a nice day in Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us. We're live in downtown Winnipeg where the sky is clear. This hour, we're going to talk about whether or not the way is going to be clear for Canada Post workers to go on strike tomorrow, possibly. We asked this question on yesterday on our call-in on CBC during Radio Noon. You were weighing in on how you would be impacted by a Canada Post strike, if at all. And so we're going to hear some of your responses. In addition, we'll have a close look this hour at the G7 Finance Ministers Summit that does end today in Banff. So stay tuned for all of that coming up. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She's here with Morning Headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, this summer is going to look a lot different for some cabin owners in Nopaming Provincial Park. The province says around 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed in the massive Bird River wildfire. One of them belonged to John and Lorraine Podwarniak. They got a message telling them their family cabin is gone, and John says he just feels numb. We'll hear more from him coming up. And a Lockport mom concerned about exposing her baby to measles is changing her habits to protect her child. Cases of the highly contagious infection in Manitoba continue to climb, the province announcing 16 new cases of measles since last week. More Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
Heather Wells.
Yes.
I have to say that last night was glorious. I know that you get out to watching your various grandsons play soccer outside.
And football, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been out in a very long time to play a sport like that during the week, but I'm now a spare on our CBC slow pitch team. And so Jérémy Laniel, who actually is over hosting right now the morning show on the Radio-Canada, it was a morning show host, uniting over the mound. He was pitching and I was catching.
We're
last
bonding.
Night. Yes, and losing. But I'll tell you what, we had so much fun last night. The team's called us Anonymous Sources. They've been around for 2 years, so I'm just a spare. But just so much fun. But I can tell you, if you play sports like that during the week, this time of year is glorious. It was just mosquito-free, no wind, big sky, beautiful spring night last night for this.
Beautiful. And the arm feels good?
The arm is a little sore from throwing the ball back. I'll tell you what, I took my baseball glove out. It had been in the garage so long and not used that it
was it a little stiff?
It was moldy.
Ew!
I spent the afternoon putting vinegar on the leather and trying to clean it up so I could go to the game. I might have to invest in a new glove.
Does vinegar take away mold?
I did a lot of Googling. Apparently, it will help. Yeah, it will do that. But it's still, I think I'm still in for a new glove.
Well, that glove saw a lot of. It was a hot glove last night, I bet.
Anyway, it was so much fun last night. I just was thinking of all the people out and about doing those kinds of things, and it was out at Old X. So all those ball diamonds, right? If you play ball in the city, you know where all these spots are. But yeah, 7 different diamonds, lots of people, lovely.
Good
just
for
lovely.
you.
All right, you know what? Today should be just equally lovely if you've got any kind of a sport in Winnipeg tonight or in a lot of the parts of the province, because it's going to be lovely. The thing about it is we do have an air quality statement. So why don't we start there, because this just came through.
Yeah, this just came through, air quality statement for the Interlake region. We're seeing this system around the Sarah Creek, Gimli, Stonewall, all the way down to Heckler and even Ashen due to that smoke from fires in the Nopaming Provincial Park area spreading towards that area. So if you are along that axis, you need to take care. Smoke will be impacting you today. But that aside, the weather across the province starts off very, very clear and cool this morning. Sunshine expected in most parts of the province. We're going to see gentle winds, keeping it, kind of fresh all through the day. For Winnipeg and surrounding area this time, we're seeing temperatures hovering around 6, 7, 8 degrees. The day already started. The sun already made its appearance. Beautiful sunrise outside. The sunshine will stick around through the day. Gentle breeze from the northeast that will pick up. That will keep things, feeling fresh, but still nice for you to spend time outside. And as we move into the afternoon, it's going to warm up nicely. We get to see temperatures climb to around 20 degrees. I don't see rain in the forecast today, Marcy.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi with our forecast on CBC. Well, I'll tell you what, I was out playing ball last night, but nothing makes you as tired as a toddler. Hi, Corey Funk.
Hi. Yes, our little guy decided, hey, sleep? Nah, let's not.
Oh, Cal. Why is he doing it? What's motivating?
I know for a fact it's not inheritance or anything like that. Because I think he's trying to kill me, but there's nothing for him to inherit it. So I don't know.
Let's get to the morning commute as Corey and the rest of Manitoba get to sleep out of their eyes at 6:15. What's going on out there?
Yeah, it's overall a pretty quiet commute so far. I haven't heard of any major issues, but if you're out there and you see something going on, feel free to give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
So yesterday on Information Radio, if you were with us for the whole show, then you heard an interview right around 8 o'clock with a letter carrier from Canada Post, Mike Brancagne. He says he loves his job, but he was critical of the union for issuing a strike notice earlier this week. Today, we're going to hear a different perspective from another person who worked at Canada Post for 14 years. He says the last strike was difficult, but he stands with his union. So that's from the workers' perspective. The other perspective here, of course, is on the other side of that delivery. It's you. So yesterday, on Radio Noon, the call-in portion of the show was dedicated to the question, how reliant are you on Canada Post? CBC's Chloe Friesen asked Manitobans what a possible strike, that could even be tomorrow, could mean for you. And here's some of the thoughts.
Hello, Violet.
Hi.
Hi. So you would like to see Canada Post stay around?
I definitely would, because I write a lot of letters and I also mail a lot of cards, and probably monthly and sometimes weekly. And I just think that cards and letters are so much more personal than getting texts or emails. I really do.
Our next caller is Mark, and Mark is a small business owner. Mark, what's your perspective on this?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm a small business owner, and yes, we do need Canada Post. For one, they keep the rates low, as I talk to a lot of the different carrier companies. So we do need them to provide that service and keeping the rates low. If they're gone, then it just becomes a free-for-all and companies get to charge whatever they want. So that is a good thing. We do need the 7-day parcel delivery business. The Monday to Friday just doesn't work. And another thing is again, I get to talk to a lot of these courier companies, and a lot of people think because Canada Post is for the government, they are not the highest paid out there. There are certainly companies out there who make a lot more than them. And as of the top 4 or 5 companies, they are the lowest paid. So they just want to get in par with what everybody else makes. And they also want a piece of that pie in that delivery business. And to become that, you need to deliver 7 days a week.
Right. And Mark, you're a small business owner. Before I let you go, I want to ask about the impact of the strike in November and December. Like you sound like you're in favor of some of the negotiating points that Canada Post workers are putting forward. But how did the strike impact you?
Heavily. The uncertainty is what kills businesses, right? So we need certainty in this market. And I think why there is so much uncertainty is because it's like Professor Lee is saying, it's the growth. And I think a lot of companies cannot keep up with the growth. And that's why I think there's so much uncertainty out there. And that's why workers are fighting for their rights. And I totally get it.
That was CBC's Chloe Friesen speaking with some Manitobans yesterday on the call-in here at CBC about another Canada Post, and if that happens, what that could mean to them in Manitoba. So yesterday, Canada Post sent a new offer to the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, which the union is now reviewing. If a new collective agreement is not reached, as we've been telling you, the union says workers will walk off the job tomorrow. We'll have full coverage of that should it happen. Manitobans who use the Postal Service are bracing what could be the second strike in, of course, 6 months, because the postal workers were out around December. Canada Post, by the way, did deny the union's offer earlier in the day yesterday. They were trying to delay a potential strike by 2 weeks. Now, later in the show, we're going to talk to a letter carrier with a different perspective than someone we heard from yesterday. He says he is ready to hit the picket lines. .620, nice morning. So a bit of music on CBC. This is His, and Get Go on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube.
I got a new home, I gotta get mine. I've been killing so much time
ditty from His. That's called Get Go. It's from the EP called Good Gold Cassette, which is kind of a warm, retro-inspired, rooted project in childhood memories and analog love. Every time I hear cassette, I want to pull up my pencil and rewind the tape. A high of 20 today in Winnipeg. We're going to have lots of sunshine in the forecast, as Abby's been mentioning. So thanks for joining us here on CBC. Current temperatures around the province look like this. Our hot spot is Gimli with 10 degrees. Churchill is the cold spot at -4, and Winnipeg right up the middle at 7 degrees right now, currently, with lots of sun and clearing downtown. Next on the show, let's talk about international news. Top finance officials from G7 countries did meet this week in Banff for a 3-day summit that ends today. It is a precursor to the full G7 Leaders Summit, which will happen in Kananaskis, Alberta in June. Now, as current president, Canada has been shaping the agenda for the discussions, pushing for common ground between nations. And to talk more about what's happened so far, Stephanie Taylor's here to run it down, parliamentary reporter at the National Post. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So what do you think have been the biggest topics on the table at the meeting? A lot of them probably expected.
Yeah, so on the agenda, the global economy, financial crimes, support for Ukraine is a big one, artificial intelligence. But really the elephant in the room has been U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs that have unleashed global trade uncertainty and a global trade war. So really the challenge for the alliance, and specifically for Canada that's playing host to this meeting, is to show unity and to show that these countries, despite all of the tensions around tariffs, can find issues and areas that they can work together on.
So U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is present. How is the conversation and relationship playing out among the group, given the global trade tensions and given the U.S.'s role in what's developed?
So those conversations have been taking place behind closed doors. And that's kind of what, ministers and experts and diplomats who know how these meetings work say is really kind of the point of them. They get together kind of top officials from around the world to sit behind closed doors and have frank, open, and honest discussions. And we know that the U.S. Treasury Secretary has certainly been talking to the other ministers there. Canada's Finance Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, for one. Mr. Champagne told reporters yesterday he had a conversation with the U.S. Treasury Secretary, kind of repleting Canada's case when it comes to getting U.S. tariffs lifted and making the point about how integrated the Canadian and American economies are. Other finance ministers are there as their countries try to kind of strike deals with Mr. Trump to get their tariffs lowered or removed altogether. But in terms of kind of how those dynamics and tensions have played out behind closed doors, we will find that out later today when the conference or the meetings conclude, and we kind of see whether there was agreement that was able to be reached on some of these big topics.
Who's coming out? Who's saying what? Isn't part of this also like there's some first meetings here with these officials? So part of it's relationship building, right?
Absolutely. It is going to be relationship building. And I think that's one thing Canada is trying to kind of set the tone on for next month, when we see world leaders, heads of state, U.S. President Donald Trump come and meet for the first time kind of as this is his second presidency as the G7, just trying to show that there can be constructive and collaborative conversations in spite of kind of all of the tension around the global trade issue that's playing out.
Representatives from Ukraine have also been invited. What do we know about that?
So Canada invited Ukraine's finance minister, and Canada said that this sends a message to the world, including to Russia, that G7 countries are prepared and will hold Russia to account. Now these finance ministers are not just talking about kind of their country's continued financial support for the war in Ukraine, but about efforts that Ukraine will need to rebuild when the war ends. Canada has suggested the cost could be, north of $500 billion US over a decade. But we know that there's some tensions and dynamics playing out when it comes to support for Ukraine from the Trump administration. A report from Politico said that the Trump administration was uncomfortable and unwilling to kind of sign the country's name to any document that were to come from this meeting that called for further or additional support for Ukraine, financial support for kind of it to continue the war. So that is something to watch for today as to whether the G7 finance ministers will be able to kind of pledge specific new, dollar amounts to help Ukraine, or is the support going to kind of be more kind of overarching and large in principle?
How do you think Canada's doing as host?
I think the devil will be in the details today. Canada's finance minister certainly wants to see a unified kind of document come out and every country put their name for it. He said he's very optimistic for it, but we're really not going to see until later today. And I think what's interesting is how much Canada has not really talked about the tariffs. In his opening news conference, Francois-Philippe Champagne talked all about other issues, but not kind of the big, as I said, the big elephant in the room, which really shows that Canada wants to come out of this meeting looking like it accomplished finding that common ground it seeks.
All right. Thanks very much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Stephanie Taylor is a parliamentary reporter with the National Post. We reached her this morning in Ottawa. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Call us if you have a problem with anything in traffic this morning on your commute at 788-3093. We do have an air quality statement that's been issued for the Interlake in the eastern part of the province, way out in Eastman. That means that smoke is causing or expected to cause poor air quality. You know all about it because of the fires that have been burning across Manitoba. Speaking of which, we'll get a bit of an update coming up in the news. Corey Funk is always staying on top of these things and watching what's going on with all of the fires. I can tell you the White Shell fire remains out of control. So does the one in Nopaming. Lac du Bonnet no longer considered out of control, although evacuees just started really going back in and out in different areas yesterday, and some will be returning tomorrow as well. Not everyone is back, though. Hydro has been a problem. 200 poles were destroyed in the fire, as you likely know. And then Cranberry Portage fire, we started reporting on this yesterday, so it is still reported, I understand, is out of control this morning. So that's where we're at with fires. If you want to read more on that update, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, the other thing you're going to see on our website is a lot of you weighing in on this idea about parking meters no longer being present in downtown Winnipeg. So the city is saying that come August, parking meters could be gone. Effectively, you're going to be using the app to pay for parking. So what do you think of that? You can weigh in on my Facebook page, Marcy Marcusa. It acts as a show page during the show, or you can call us. We'd love to hear your voices, your thoughts, your concerns, or maybe you think this is an awesome idea. 788-3205 is where you can call, 788-3205 if you want to weigh in with some listener lines, and we'll hear a bit more on the news. We're going to hear more actually after 7 o'clock as well right here on Information Radio. We have business news coming up. If you're a regular listener, then you know that we have that coming up. But Phil Demont is filling in for Crystalie Ramlakan for the next week. He will be here talking about North American stock markets, which tanked yesterday. This was about concerns around U.S. debt. He also has a story this morning about airlines on both sides of the border bracing for a weak summer. And so we're going to hear more about what is going on with that story. And of course, the day's opening numbers, markets. We'll have a look at the dollar and the price of oil and such with Phil Demont. First, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 7 degrees. It's a beautiful morning. It is going to be a gorgeous afternoon. Bit of a breeze, a high of 20 today, but we might be feeling frosty tonight, a low of 3 with a risk of frost. Former Premier Heather Stefanson is not apologizing after Manitoba's ethics commissioner said she violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner's report says Stefanson and 2 of her PC cabinet ministers acted improperly after losing the 2023 election. It says all 3 pushed for the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new NDP government took office. The report recommends Stefanson, former Deputy Premier Cliff Cullen, and then Economic Development Minister Jeff Wharton be fined thousands of dollars. Stefanson says she did nothing wrong and was simply doing her job. Wharton, the only one of the 3 who still holds elected office, apologized late last night, but he says he never intended to breach parliamentary convention. People who have lost cabins in Nopaming Provincial Park are hanging on tighter to memories. John and Lorraine Podwarniak's place at Beresford Lake was destroyed in the Bird River wildfire. That fire has spread over more than 100,000 hectares. John built the cabin with a friend back in the 1970s, and they continued to share it. He says the peace and calm in the park drew him to the area.
Remoteness. Being able to go up there with the family and enjoy the quiet time, get away from the hustle and bustle, lots of memories.
Podwarniak isn't sure yet if they will rebuild. The province says 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed. An additional 19 structures at seasonal sites at Black Lake have also burned in the fire. A Lockport mom who is concerned about exposing her 3-month-old baby to measles is changing her habits to protect her child. Cases of the highly contagious infection in Manitoba continue to climb. The province has announced 16 new cases of measles since last week. So far, it has reported 64 confirmed or probable cases. At 3 months old, Samantha Joyce says her daughter isn't eligible to be vaccinated yet.
I am a little anxious. I do want to keep my baby and my other nieces and nephews safe. I really want to get it done as soon as possible. And it does make me a little weary of bringing her out and being around other people.
The Manitoba government has expanded eligibility to 6 to 12-month-old children in the Interlake, Eastern and Southern health regions. To Washington now, where 2 people were shot and killed and 2 others injured at an event at a Jewish museum last night. Both the victims, a man and a woman, were staffers of the Israeli embassy in D.C., and according to reports, were about to be engaged. Pamela Smith is Washington police chief.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
Smith says a 30-year-old Chicago man was detained following that shooting and is in custody. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he expects Israel to fully investigate why members of the Israeli army fired shots in the West Bank near a diplomatic delegation, a delegation that included some Canadians.
The Israeli ambassador has been summoned to Global Affairs to see the minister and explain. We expect a full investigation. We expect a immediate explanation of what happened. It's totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
Israel's military says the diplomatic group deviated from an approved travel route and ended up in a prohibited area. It says soldiers fired warning shots to get them to move. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Manitoba's largest school division had to scramble as it welcomed a surge of newcomers into its classrooms this year. Winnipeg School Division saw a bump of 829 students from the previous academic year. Superintendent Matt Henderson says the increase led some schools to make last-minute hires and to repurpose parts of libraries into new classrooms.
We don't often anticipate 800 more students coming into our schools year after year, but because we were receiving so many newcomers from different parts of the world, that's a little harder for us to predict.
In terms of sheer numbers, Winnipeg School Division saw the largest growth in this year's provincial enrollment report, but many smaller rural divisions had much higher increases by percentage. The city of Thompson's getting a new airport terminal later this year. The existing terminal servicing that northern city is decades old and is sinking into the ground. It also doesn't meet regulations. The new terminal will have improved dining options and retail kiosks. Curtis Ross is the CEO of Thompson's Airport Authority.
We have numerous restaurant locations, numerous retail opportunities within it. I always say it's more than just an airport. You know, you can't think of it as just an airport. It's almost a retail center too. It's almost like a mall.
Thompson's new terminal is expected to open in December. And to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Edmonton Oilers dropped the opening game of the Western Conference Final.
Back to Duchesne, back to Haston, and then across, and that steered wide. Loose puck, empty net, and it's good!
CBC and Sportsnet showing Haliburton, Ontario native Matt Duchesne scoring the go-ahead goal, 1 of 5 by the hometown Dallas Stars in the third period as the Stars beat the Oilers 6-3. Dallas now leads the series 1-0. Game 2 in Dallas tomorrow night. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Dallas.
I know.
I don't know.
They're just troublemakers.
I know. I don't know what to cheer for. In Winnipeg, we don't like to cheer for the Oilers all that much. So
I'm going Oilers.
I know. So am I, because it's Canada.
Yeah, you got to do it.
All right. Just game 1. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news center. It's time for your regional forecast. Abby Adiemi has all of those details.
Good morning. Once again, across the province, it's already sunny in most of the regions except for Churchill, where we have freezing fog from the south all the way down down to north, we're already enjoying sunshine in most of the regions. Special air quality statement in effect for the Interlake region into a lot of the eastern parts of the province, from Saranac to Gimli, all the way down to the Whiteshell and surrounding areas. Smoke from that fire near the Noppermin Provincial Park is spreading, and this is leading to poor air quality and low visibilities at times in most of the areas. So you need to take care if you're in that part of the province. Now, coming to Winnipeg and looking at conditions in the Red River Valley region at this time. Sunny, clear and cool, 7 degrees outside. Expect lots of sunshine today with our highs near 20 degrees. The breeze will come from the northeast, keeping things comfortable and cool. No rain I see in the forecast for now. Moving into the Pembina Valley region, similar conditions to Winnipeg for Winkler, Alton and Morris. We're seeing temperatures around 4 degrees at this time. Plenty of sunshine also will bring temperatures up to 20 degrees. Brandon, good morning. It's also sunny and mainly clear out there. 3 degrees. The day will be sunny with high close to 20 degrees. You are at 19 at this time. A light northwest breeze being felt in that part of the province. Then we track conditions into the Parkland region. Dauphin is sunny, 2 degrees. It's cool there. Things are clearing up. You should see a sunny day, highs around 21. In the Interlake region, where we're having also that smoke affecting folks in the Gimli area. 7 degrees this morning with clear skies. Some haze you will notice in the air, but expect sunny conditions, highs around 20 degrees for folks in Gimli. And then we track it into the northern part of the province, the powerful influence surrounding areas. We're looking at sunny day with morning temperatures around 4 degrees, 5 degrees at this time. It's going to stay mostly sunny for the day. We will see highs also close to 20 degrees for that part of the province. Then in Thompson, it is 3 degrees and partly cloudy. The sun also trying to make its appearance for folks in Thompson at this time, warming up to 20 degrees. Then further north in Churchill, it is chilly, -4. We saw light snow earlier. Now we're seeing freezing drizzle, so you might be seeing some misty conditions in that part of the province. Your highs will only get to 8 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's return to down south here. Corey's looking at the traffic situation all over the province, but in and around Winnipeg, what do we know?
Yeah, eastbound Abinogi Meekina from St. Anne's Road to River Road. The curb lane is closed for some landscaping going on there, so that might throw off your commute a little bit this morning as well. Still northbound Pembina from Chancellor to Plaza. Those left lanes still closed for construction, so that might cause some issues for you as well. If you see any other issues going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Phil Lamont's here now with our business report. Hi, Phil.
You know why I'm happy I'm a Habs fan these days?
Why?
If they win, you're like, great, because you never expect them to win. Now you guys feel the pain of being a Leafs fan all these years. You get the expectations up, and then it crashes on you. I was disappointed at the Jets.
I don't know if we feel like Leafs fans. Don't put us in that
nobody
category.
does, but you know what I
we're
mean.
We're not booing our team. We're nicer than Leafs fans. Let's start with that. But yes, we are feeling a bit of pain. I have to say though, because it was such a class act, the way that everything ended, they played so well, and the heartbreaking reality of the real life reminder of Scheifele's dad dying. I think that it kind of changed sort of the end of the season for the Jets. There's a really good article actually on our local website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, talking all about that. So,
I'll look that up.
But yeah, we're all going to have to be Oilers fans now, Phil. Get on board.
Go Oilers. Oh.
Get on board. North American stock markets, let's start there. They tanked yesterday on concerns about U.S. debt. What changed this week?
Bond yields, they've spiked in recent weeks. Now, when I talk about this, you have to substitute the word in your mind, at least interest rate for yields, to understand what's happening. In the past few days, the bond yield on American 30-year bonds above 5%, for 10-year bonds above 4.5%. Now, what that means is your mortgage or your car loan, whether in the Canada or the U.S., they're really based upon these interest rates. So if the rates are going up for the bonds, especially the 10-year bonds, it probably means the interest rate on your loans are going up. Now, the market looked at this, and the overall worry is the size of Washington's debt. The U.S. deficit's 40% higher January to May this year versus last year, and the U.S. Government's debt load is already twice as high as Canada's. We think it's high up here, but it's worse in the States. So investors, they looked at this and they're guessing that to pay off all that borrowing, Washington's going to have to issue trillions of dollars in new bonds. But, Marcy, the only way to sell the bonds is to offer a higher interest rate. It's the only way it works. So the markets don't like higher interest rates because they borrow money to expand plants and that stuff. And that's why the stock market's dropped. But here's the kicker for most people. Donald Trump's been complaining of the U.S. Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, but they're going up. And this week's market turmoil tells you that, if you're renewing your credit card or you get a new credit card or get a bank loan for a car or a mortgage, those things are going to start going up because that's what the bond yields are telling you. It's going north, not south.
Let's talk about something else that is changing if people fly. Airlines, and I understand both sides of the border now are bracing for a really weak summer. What are the issues?
Yeah, some are American specific, but most are about the economy. Summer months are important for airlines because most families with children travel. Airlines typically make 65% of their profits July to September. Not this year, though. U.S. they've had the air traffic control problems at a lot of airports, not just Newark, but it's led to some airlines like United cutting certain routes. But the economic uncertainty, tariffs in the U.S. increasing prices for many items south of the border, so U.S. American consumer confidence close to a record low. In Canada, companies have been cutting jobs and closing plants, at least temporarily. That's to deal with fewer exports going into the U.S. That's down about 7%. So air carriers seeing weaker travel statistics. Americans booking travel to Europe down about 10% this year. Now, Canadians going to the U.S. down about 20%. Part of that's economic. Part of it's kind of a conscious boycott around Donald Trump's 51st state talk. But if you look at non-residents travel to Canada, it shows you the kind of weakness. It's down almost 8%. So that's people coming here, not us going there. And all that means it's going to be a really hard summer for a lot of air carriers.
Let's go to a final story here before we look at the numbers. There's renewed concern about heart attacks in the workplace.
Yeah.
What's driving the worry?
Yeah, I saw some articles on this, so I thought I'd look it up. Increased stress, an obvious issue. In Canada, 2/3 of workers feel stress or burnout at work, 25% acutely so. In the U.S., numbers are worse. Something like 10,000 people die from a cardiac episode on the job each year. And experts say with an aging workforce, those numbers are likely to increase. But 70% of Americans at work don't know what to do if their colleague has a heart attack. More than 50% of UK employees have no emergency health training, and only 18% of all Canadians are CPR certified. Now, years ago, North American workplaces dealt with this kind of problem by installing defibrillators, and that's worked. In the U.S., bystanders have saved something like 1,700 lives annually by using these devices, but not enough places have them or people trained to do what to do in this kind of an emergency. In Canada, only about 20% of public buildings have defibrillators on site. These days, most workplaces have designated fire wards, the people with those funny hats at their desks. Maybe it's time we actually have designated CPR experts.
Let's go to the numbers now. What are they telling us?
Yeah, the U.S. markets were down yesterday, so Europe and Asia down today. Germany, France, UK off close to 1%. Hong Kong down almost 1.5%. The Nikkei in Japan, Shanghai off as well. Oil's down $1.17, $60.40 a barrel. Gold's off $25, $3,288 U.S. an ounce. And the Canadian dollar down about 1/10 cent, trading at 72 1/10 cent U.S.
All right, Phil, I know you're with us for a week, filling in for Krista Lee, so we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Terrific.
That's Phil Demont with our business news. It is 6:45 a.m. and let's talk about the charm of a small town or a hamlet. In Manitoba, we do have some small and mighty spaces. For example, Wiskata is the smallest public K-12 school in Manitoba. I visited there in Western Manitoba at one point to cover the smallest graduating class. At one point, one year, I think in grade 3, for example, there were just 3 students. When it comes to small hamlets in Manitoba, if there's 100 people or less, it's called a hamlet. One of the smallest is Springsteen. It is located in the RM of Cartier. It's a hamlet with a population of around 42 houses. So we have our fair share of small places. But in Canada, there was a place that was known as the smallest town in the country with just 4 people calling it home. Tilt Cove on the Baie Verte Peninsula will have that title, though, no more, because earlier this year they struck a deal with the province to resettle. So the two couples that lived there have been packing to relocate to Kings Point. The CBC's Troy Turner visited the community and met with the outgoing mayor, Don Collins. Yeah, there was a mayor in Tilt Cove who is saying goodbye and relocating.
It's the daily reminders of seclusion and isolation, feeding birds on his front deck, exploring the area in his recreational vehicle, seals catching their next meal. Life for the mayor of Tilt Cove is idyllic, but that's about to change.
I figured I was going to be here till the last one, till the end. But time takes a toll on everything. And the older you get, the faster time goes. And you don't know when you're going to come down because so much disease and so much illness in the world, you don't know. And it all takes a little toll on you. And he says, well, I got to go.
Tilt Cove has seen its share of attention for having so few permanent residents. It's nestled under the copper-stained mountains of the Baie Verte Peninsula, a constant reminder of the mine that once flourished. Don Collins remembers when the population was about 1,500, when Tilt Cove had all the amenities of a bustling young town.
A big 6-classroom school over there. There was a trailer court with 10 or 12 trailers. There was a rec center over there with 2 lanes of curling and 2 lanes of bowling and a movie theater. There was a hospital down the end of the pond there. You got everything you need, a big library here, Boy Scout camp, Girl Scouts. Pretty quiet. Yeah, I'm about the noisiest thing here now.
Talks over relocation have been ongoing for years, and the 4 permanent residents, siblings who married siblings, have been working to leave since 2019. In April, they found new homes to rent, and the work began.
I'd rather be here. I'm going to be here all summer long. As long as the road is good and I'm healthy, I'll be here summertime. I mean, everything I worked all my life for is there, right? So you don't just walk away from that.
The two couples will be moving a little south to Kings Point on the southwest arm of Green Bay.
And we were lucky enough to strike on the place that we did get, and well, I got another brother-in-law who's coming home and sister, and they're coming home to live in Kings Point, so that way we'd still be together.
Collins doesn't regret the move, but he does second-guess himself at times. Winters were getting hard, and health services are minimal.
Every now and then some memory will come along, and say, well, there's another one left behind. Right? When I came in, there was a lot of people there now, and all my family is up on the hill. Yeah, there's more people on the other side of the fence now than what's on this side. I want to be here. This is where my ashes is going to come here. This is where I want to die. I should admit that if I get sick, if you can get me to tackle before I die, I'll die a happy man.
It may be so long for now, but it'll never be goodbye for Don Collins. This town is where his story is. It's where his roots are. It's where he raised his family and laid other family members to rest. And this quiet and solitude here today is something that he says he'll continue to revisit time and time again, as long as he is able. Troy Turner, CBC News, Tilt Cove.
So thanks to CBC's Troy Turner for that story. By the way, Tilt Cove is in Newfoundland. It is 10 to 7 right now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It is 7 degrees in Winnipeg, sunny, clear, also clear in Brandon with 3 degrees. Thompson, partly cloudy and 3. And wow, the forecast. I mean, really, we have sunshine in our forecast in Winnipeg, Brandon, Thompson, all over the province for the next, foreseeable future. Into next Wednesday, it's sunny for Winnipeg with highs ranging from 20 to 27 as the nicer weather takes hold once again. Well, next on the program, the wars in Gaza and Ukraine and global insecurity have put military news back in the media spotlight. Prime Minister Mark Carney, in step with other world leaders, says he will better fund the military and procure more military hardware. But the problem of attracting and retaining skilled military recruits is a separate problem. According to recent studies, many Canadians don't want to join the military, and those who do often do not want to stay. Christian Leuprecht is a professor at the Royal Military College and Queen's University, editor of Canadian Military Journal, and was recently on with us talking about equipment and is here today to talk about people. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcia. And people, of course, are our most important asset.
They are, but apparently they're not wanting to sign up. So what's going on with recruiting in this country?
Well, this has been a persistent challenge, but the organization is facing a shortfall of about 14,500 people out of an authorized troop strength of 72,000. So you're about 20% short. That divides roughly halfly into positions into which the Canadian Forces has a hard time recruiting, and the other half into people who are not deployable for any number of reasons. And you can imagine that has implications for force generation. You just don't have enough people. It has implications for force sustainment because now you don't have enough trainers in order to train up the new people. And it has implications for operations because, for instance, if you're missing your warfare officer on a ship, that ship is not going to be able to leave port.
So what's behind the challenges in recruitment?
Yeah, so this is what social scientists like to call a multivariate problem. So there's many explanations. A lot of people lay blame sort of at the institutional culture and sexual harassment issues. Yes, that is certainly one driver, but the Canadian Forces has changed and continues to change in that regard. I would say a much more straightforward explanation is that the Canadian Forces has virtually no presence in the two largest recruiting centers in the country, which is the Greater Toronto Area and Vancouver. The Canadian Forces is looking for people who are physically fit and psychologically fit. We're all aware of the obesity crisis that has beset our young populations. The Canadian Forces is looking for people who are highly skilled. If you look at in particular, the Navy and the Air Force, these are very high-tech organizations. So you're competing for the same high-end skill set that everyone else in society is trying to recruit from. And of course, the Canadian military tends to do better when the economy does poorly because there's more of an incentive for people to sign up. So with sort of demographic change and reasonably good economic times, that also means the military faces challenges. So there's a host of sort of these challenges that are all coming together. But I guess the silver lining is Canada is not alone. Just about all Western militaries are facing the same sort of challenges.
That's why people aren't signing up. But why are people leaving? I understand there's a problem with some are saying there's problems with our development model.
Yeah, so look, I think, again, there's a host of reasons for this. I think I put a particular emphasis on deployments. So people get frustrated because they don't get into the training cycle when they want. They don't get on the deployments that they want. They don't have the experience on those deployments that they would like to have. But these deployments are also very disruptive. You can imagine if you're in your 20s, you have a partner, you have a family, you go away for 6 months at a time, that this isn't very conducive to the relationship. So it's always been puzzling to me why in areas where we've made a long-term commitment to a country such as Latvia, we don't go back to the Cold War deployment model of deploying people and their partners and families, if they choose, for up to 3 years at a time. There's also things we need to do around healthcare. Every time you move, as a military member, you have healthcare, but your family, of course, has to search around the way any other Canadian does, for instance, for healthcare. There's housing challenges, because if you move frequently, then inherently you got to switch houses, and you know what the housing challenge in this country is like. So there's a host of other attributes that are driving people just saying they pick their relationship or they pick their life over the Canadian Armed Forces.
Who is signing up? Is there a geographic area of the country or a demographic sector of the population that is continuing to sign up?
So the Canadian Forces has traditionally, as have all militaries, recruited disproportionately in rural areas. And of course, with the demographic demise of many rural areas, that has also meant that recruiting from those areas is no longer an option. But there's also highly differentiated issues. So, for instance, the Canadian Armed Forces recruits reasonably successfully from Indigenous populations, but those are overrepresented among the rank and file, but they're underrepresented among officers. With the decline of French in English Canada, it's meant the Canadian Force has to rely disproportionately on the 4 million francophones in Quebec to sustain a bilingual organization. And the military also has varying levels of success with different immigrant communities, different ethnic communities, different religious communities, and across different provinces. But ultimately, it is the largest employer in the country between the Canadian Forces and the Department of National Defence, and so it must be the gold standard and must be representative of Canadian society as a whole if we're going to task the organization with defending Canadian interests and Canadian values.
What's at stake here, Christian, if this doesn't improve, especially given the pressure on Canada to meet its NATO commitments right now?
That ultimately we can spend any number of billions on kit. If we don't have people to operate that kit, it doesn't much matter. And it takes a long time to train those people. So a fully trained officer takes about 7 years. If you want an experienced officer, it takes about 15 years. So these are not people who can just kind of pick up from the street and sort of put in the organization. And our allies are watching closely because we can already see the ramifications of not being able to come through on the staffing side for instance, our mission in Latvia and being able to continue to meet our commitments to our allies for a country that is Canada is already not in good standing with most of our allies, given that we are the only NATO member country that spends less than 2% of GDP on defense and less than 20% of its defense budget on capital expenditures. So we can hope that politicians are changing their mantra when it comes to the Canadian Armed Forces.
Thank you very much for outlining the challenges this morning. I appreciate having you on.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Have a good morning.
You as well. That's Christian Leuprecht, professor at the Royal Military College in Queen's University, editor of the Canadian Military Journal. So if you're listening this morning and you are bucking that trend and you're in the military, why? Tell us, let us know why you signed up and what your life has been like. 788-3205. Let's go to Heather Wells now, 3 minutes to 7 with headlines.
Good morning. Well, former Premier Heather Stephenson is not apologizing after Manitoba Ethics Commissioner said she violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner's report says Stephenson and two of her PC cabinet ministers acted improperly after losing the 2023 election. Now, this concerns the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new NDP government took office. Stephenson says she did nothing wrong. This summer is going to look a lot different for some cabin owners in Nopaming Provincial Park. The province says some 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed in the massive Bird River wildfire. One of them belonged to John and Lorraine Podwarniak. John says he just feels numb. We're going to hear more from him in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
7 degrees, sunny in Winnipeg. The high today will be 20 degrees with sunshine all day and light winds. We do have air quality statements, so be careful with the smoke in the air around the Interlake and the Eastman region. The commute this Thursday morning looking good. 788-3093 if you want to prove us wrong and you have a problem that we should share. Well, speaking of things that people are weighing in on, the city of Winnipeg's doing away with pay stations for parking this summer. You might have heard this. So downtown, you're going to be paying online. No more meters come August. How do you feel about it? We're going to hear some of that. You are writing into us this morning already about it. Brian Monkman, not mincing words, says it's a stupid idea. So we're going to hear more about why he thinks that as we share some of our comments in the next hour as well. Also, in the next hour of Information Radio, at 10 to 8 this morning, Canada Post workers could walk off the job as of midnight. Yesterday, we heard from a letter carrier who's upset about that, doesn't want to hit the picket line again. We're going to hear another perspective from another postal worker today. We'll say he stands with his union, and we'll have that interview for you in the next hour. World Report, though, is next.
Today on The Current.
People described him as a very gentle and kind person.
A week before Christmas, 3 years ago, a group of teen girls swarmed a homeless man in downtown Toronto. Kenneth Lee was fatally stabbed. The story of the crime and how it made it through the justice system coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
The couple that was gunned down tonight in the name of Free Palestine. It's a young couple about to be engaged.
Yechiel Leiter, Israel's ambassador to Washington, speaking about his 2 staff members. They were fatally shot after an event in the U.S. Capitol. Israel's government is blaming rising anti-Semitism around the world. Richard Madden is at the Capitol Jewish Museum where the shooting happened. And Richard, what can you tell us?
Well, there's heavy police presence outside this Jewish museum here in the heart of the district. It's just a few blocks from the Capitol and the White House. This is that deadly and horrific scene of the shooting last night that claimed the lives of 2 young staffers with the Israeli embassy. Now, police say the suspect allegedly approached them and another group of people who were all leaving a multi-faith event there and opened fire. An eyewitness described what happened next.
He's like, I did this for Gaza, free Palestine. There's only one solution, Intifada revolution.
Now, the victims have since been identified as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. These were 2 young staffers from the Israeli embassy who were about to be engaged. Authorities have also identified the suspect, Elias Rodriguez of Chicago. Now, police say he was spotted pacing outside the museum before the shooting and walked inside afterwards and was promptly detained by event security.
Can you tell us more about some of the reaction?
There's been plenty. President Donald Trump posting on a social media site, quote, "These horrible DC killings based obviously on anti-Semitism must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the U.S." Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, had this to say.
There is a direct line connecting anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli incitement to this murder. This incitement is also done by leaders and officials of many countries and international organizations, especially from Europe.
Security has reportedly been increased at Israeli missions, including its embassy here in the capital, as the investigation continues.
Thank you, Richard.
You bet.
CBC's Richard Madden reporting from Washington. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he expects Israel to fully investigate why members of the Israeli army fired shots in the West Bank near a diplomatic delegation, a delegation that included some Canadians.
The Israeli ambassador has been summoned to Global Affairs to see the minister and explain. We expect a full investigation. We expect a immediate explanation of what happened. It's totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
Israel's military says the diplomatic group deviated from an approved travel route and ended up in a prohibited area. It says soldiers fired warning shots to get them to move. Israel's foreign minister is showing signs of frustration. World leaders are applying growing pressure to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. As Crystal Gomansing reports, the Israeli government says the world should be pressuring Hamas.
Who is responsible for this war? Who initiated this war?
Gideon Sa'ar made his position clear to journalists in Israel. The war can end if Hamas chooses. He acknowledges war is something very tough, very bad in his words, but Hamas started it and can end it. For the first time in 11 weeks, trucks loaded with flour were picked up by humanitarian workers and moved deeper into southern Gaza overnight. In the dark, people swarmed an aid truck, snatching bags. Hunger makes you do bad things, one man tells a video journalist working for the CBC in Gaza. Shots were fired, eventually scattering some of the crowd around the truck.
This isn't a natural disaster. It hasn't been an earthquake or a volcanic eruption.
The UK's development minister was in the West Bank Wednesday. Jenny Chapman said Israel is using hunger as a weapon of war. Israeli officials have repeatedly said their military efforts, including the recent expansion of operations, are an effort to secure Israel's safety and pressure Hamas to return all of the hostages. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tax and spending bill has now passed the Republican-controlled House of Representatives.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 214, with one answering present. The bill is passed.
This is a political victory for Trump and what he calls his big, beautiful bill. It is 1,000 pages of legislation that will extend corporate and individual tax cuts. The bill cancels many green energy initiatives and incentives and restricts eligibility for health and food programs. The bill still needs to pass the Republican-controlled Senate before Trump can sign it into law. Pressure is mounting on Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to fire his national campaign manager, Jenny Byrne. Our colleagues at Radio-Canada have spoken to 12 Conservative caucus members. They say many in the party directly blame Byrne for the Conservatives' election defeat last month. Some sources complained about Byrne's toxic and angry behavior at campaign headquarters. Others said she had poor communication with teams in the field. And others say it's her fault Poilievre did not campaign more on the threat of U.S. tariffs. Ontario is aiming to speed up approvals for mining projects. Doug Ford's government says it is a way to protect the economy from U.S. tariffs. He says it can be done without harming the environment or sidelining Indigenous rights. But as Mike Crawley reports, there is pushback against the plan.
It's one of the first bills from Doug Ford's government since winning re-election in February. It commits Ontario to making decisions on mining permits within 2 years, cutting the current timeline in half.
That is a significant reduction.
Ontario's Minister of Energy and Mines, Stephen Lecce.
It will be amongst the fastest permitting regimes in the industrialized democratic world. That is the gold standard. That's what we want to aspire to.
The bill would also empower Ontario's cabinet to create what it calls special economic zones, where companies and projects could then be exempted from any provincial laws or regulation. Ford has specifically said the Ring of Fire mineral deposit in Northern Ontario is a candidate.
Doug Ford has been pushing for deregulation and pushing to develop the Ring of Fire his entire time in office.
Jamie Neen is with Mining Watch Canada, a nonprofit advocacy group. He's skeptical of the government's claim that faster mining approvals will protect Ontario's economy against tariffs.
They're just using this as a pretext for doing what they wanted to do already, and hoping that people won't notice that the two are not really connected.
Studies show the global average for a mine to go from discovery to production is more than 15 years. In Canada, it's nearly 18 years. Shaving 2 years off Ontario's approval timeline would mean some mines still have a long way to go before they become a reality. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Police in Kingston, Ontario are investigating what they are calling a femicide. It is rare for Canadian police to use that term. As Nicole Williams reports, advocates say using that word may help fight against gender-based violence.
This is a senseless loss of life.
Kingston Police Chief Scott Fraser describing the attack on a 25-year-old woman last Friday. The 26-year-old man charged with her murder, believed to be her partner. For the first time, the force is calling an alleged murder a femicide.
If you know somebody who may be in a domestic violence situation, there's lots of resources available.
Kingston joins a growing number of Canadian police forces using the term femicide to describe when a girl or woman is killed because of her gender. Ottawa police believed to be the first to do so last year after they charged a husband with the murder of his wife.
I think this is a major step forward.
That's Kingston-based feminist lawyer Pamela Cross, also a member of Ontario's Domestic Violence Death Review Committee.
If we don't name what's going on, we don't really see what's going on, and that means we can't change what's going on.
She's among advocates calling for a broader use of the term femicide, including Necka McGregor, executive director of the Women's Centre for Social Justice.
And it helps people understand that it is not an ordinary type of killing, that there is a motivation behind it.
There are also recommendations it be added to Canada's criminal code, including from inquiries into the 2015 murders of 3 women in Renfrew County, Ontario, and the 2020 mass shootings in Nova Scotia, which saw 12 women and 1 girl killed out of the 22 victims. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. And if you like hearing the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. It is sunny downtown through our studios here at CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining our team at the show. Well, apparently you don't like it. The idea that the city has to get rid of the meters in downtown Winnipeg come August, which will leave you with prepaid options that you have to think about in advance and fill out a booklet, or you do the app. Claudia Garcia de la Huerta writing into the show this morning, my 19-year-old daughter has pointed out countless times to me that it's unfair that she and the majority of her friends don't have credit cards. So it makes the parking apps absolutely useless. It makes metered lots and streets inaccessible if they don't take cash, and they only take credit cards. We're going to hear more of your thoughts on this idea. In this hour of the show as well, at 10 to 8, Canada Post workers could walk off the job as of midnight tonight. Yesterday, a letter carrier who said he's upset at the thought of hitting the picket lines again. A different perspective from a different postal worker today. He says he stands with his union. We're going to hear more about that as we click closer to that deadline. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She is here live with our news headlines as they're developing in our province today. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Lockport mom concerned about exposing her baby to measles is changing her habits to protect her child. Cases of measles in Manitoba continue climbing, the province announcing 16 new cases since last week. At 3 months old, Samantha Joyce says her daughter isn't eligible to be vaccinated yet, and until she is, Joyce says she's going to be wary about taking her out around other people. Manitoba's largest school division had to scramble as it welcomed a surge of newcomers into its classrooms this year. Winnipeg School Division saw a bump of 829 students from the previous year. Superintendent Matt Henderson says the increase led to some schools making last-minute hires and repurposing parts of libraries into new classrooms. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 7:30.
Abby, how's the weather?
Special air quality statement in effect for the interlake and eastern parts of the province due to smoke from wildfire. Winnipeg at 9 at this time. Sunny conditions and clear outside. We're in for a beautiful day. Sunshine will stay with us through the afternoon. Light breeze will come from the northeast and will warm up to 20 degrees later.
And Corey, the commute?
Nothing to report right now, but it heads up that tomorrow the Louise Bridge closes for maintenance work until the 26th. So that might throw off your weekend commute. If it's both ways, it's going to be closed. If you see anything else going on right now, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, the city of Winnipeg, you might have heard yesterday this announcement. They're doing away with metered parking stations in the downtown area. Lisa Patterson is manager of operations and facilities with the city. Before we get into your comments, here's what she had to say, speaking to reporters, explaining why they're making the change.
The plan to remove the pay station starts July 2nd and will go until about the end of August 31st. And the reason that we are doing that this year is because the machines operate off of 3G network, and the network is being retired at some point this year. So as soon as the network retires, the machines will stop working. Also, the credit card payment inserts are also outdated technology. We have to pay an additional fee on top of every credit card transaction to process the payment securely. And then, of course, we've been hit with some vandalism and theft for over the last 6 months or so. So there's a few reasons why the pay stations are being removed this year.
So people who don't have phones, their options are those slips and paying by phone?
You got it. So pay by phone. Yeah, you can call a phone number. You can pay online. The best thing you could do right now, if your smartphone is beside you, or if you're by your home computer or work computer, is to go set up an account or go to the App Store and download the app. That way you can set up your license plates, you can set up your credit card information. In fact, you can have this opportunity now to set up friends and family that may not be as tech savvy, or friends and family that don't want to process a payment through their phone. You can add their license plate to your account as well. So there'll be QR codes on all of our pay stations for the next 2 months. So you can scan the QR code and it will take you directly to the Pay by Phone website.
So we are in for some big change. People writing into CBC this morning. Julie Kentner saying technology is great until it isn't. What happens when the app's not working? You're going to be ticketed anyway. Maggie McGee wrote in, my experience has been the meters were often not functioning properly anyway. So I think they underestimate, though, how many people don't have access to phones or apps. Brian Monkman, not mincing words, saying a stupid idea. What about the seniors that don't have that app or payment method on a phone? They're just kicking seniors to the curb, forcing them to use taxis. But as outlined there by Lisa Patterson, there are some options to make a call to pay for your parking or to go and get these booklets and prepay in different places. But will you do it? How are you feeling about the change? Radio Canada's Ilrek Duhamel spoke to some drivers in the Exchange District.
My name is Kyra Delaront. I work in the Exchange New Cafe Sanctuary on Waterfront. And yeah, I've lived here my whole life.
Are you using your car to get to work?
Yes, yeah. I have to drive here every day and find parking in the area, which is super hard. And then on top of that, I have to pay every 2 hours. Right now for parking, I'm using the app on my phone. So I have my credit card linked on there. And every 2 hours, I have to repay and move my car.
And do you feel like this app is easy to use?
It's like pretty easy, but like if you don't have a credit card or like sometimes my phone is dead, like it's just not as convenient as like throwing some change I have into the machines.
Were you using the pay station sometimes also?
Yes, I used to use the pay stations when I just have coins in my car, but like now since I'm paying so often, I'm constantly using the app.
And what do you think of the decision of the city to remove those pay stations?
Honestly, I think it might be pretty hard. There's a lot of old people in this area as well that probably aren't too familiar with the system, but I don't know.
Alexis Scott.
Alexis, tell us, what are you doing downtown today?
Birthday breakfast.
And you came with your car?
Yes.
And you had to park?
Yes.
How was that experience so far using the app?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. But because there's not a lot of places that you know where to park, it's nice having the station. So just in case my phone doesn't work. App is easier, and I think the app, sometimes you can get where you can get more time. So if you're in a restaurant or anything like that, you get more time. But I think not knowing where you are sometimes, having the stations, you're more familiar where to stand.
Tyler Rogers. The city says they want to remove the parking stations. How do you feel about this?
Are they going to replace it with a better app to pay for parking, or is it going to be the same app? Because that would be my first question, because these things already are like hit or miss. When they're in working order, they don't work all the time. And the app has backfired on me and resulted in, 5 or 6 tickets. And, that's not good. I don't know. Especially when we work down here. We run a business down here, so our patrons and our customers are constantly having times. And post-COVID, especially with a venue, getting people to come downtown and spend money is difficult enough. Putting another barrier in front of them, like finding parking and making it hard for them to pay for parking, is just something that we don't need.
So that was CBC Radio Canada's Ilrek Duhamel speaking to Winnipeggers about how you feel about the city's plan to remove the pay stations. The city says the goal is to have them all out by the end of August. You can read more on the website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, about it. If you want to weigh in this morning, 788-3205. When you hit these issues, Corey Funk, that everybody can weigh in on, parking, streets, construction, we usually always get a lot of calls. So I expect we're going to get people calling about this one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You are in studio, though, not to talk about parking, but to talk about a really fun interview that you recently had. Super interesting, with a Winnipegger doing something cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact opposite of parking. It's dancing. So she's actually... her name's Alexa Case. She's actually she's going to be on one of the world's most well-known stages. She's a dancer, originally from Brandon, Manitoba, and she just joined the Moulin Rouge.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, so that's, of course, in Paris, France. Probably not a lot of people have actually been there in person, but they know from that movie, Moulin Rouge, starring Nicole Kidman.
Kitschy, yeah.
Exactly. Christina Aguilera.
Perfect impression.
She actually made her stage debut earlier this month. So I was actually able to catch up with her between shows just last week.
Hi. Bonjour.
Hello. So you made your stage debut on Tuesday. Just tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, Tuesday was my debut day. It was an incredible day. So we started out in the morning with rehearsals at the Moulin Rouge. We call it a general. And beforehand, we had about 3 weeks of rehearsal, which was amazing, about 5 hours a day, to get us all prepared and ready for the big debut day. After our general, we got to do our makeup, our hair, put on an iconic red lip, and it was time to hit the stage.
Did it feel real for you while you were doing that?
I think the whole time during rehearsals, it was a question for me of, when is this going to feel real, or when is this, because it all felt kind of dreamlike. And then I think during the general, during our rehearsal, that's when it fully hit me. The first show felt a little bit of a blur, and then the second show, I really got to take in everything and experience the show with the audience. The live audience really just adds a different element. So much energy, and seeing everyone's facial expressions because you're so close is really cool and such a surreal experience for sure.
And give us a sense, like what kind of dancing are you doing on stage, maybe for those who aren't necessarily familiar with the Moulin Rouge?
Yeah, so the Moulin Rouge is known for its French can-can for sure. That's what a lot of tourists and locals alike come to see the show for, because it is super iconic and they've been dancing it since 1889. But the show is also, we do about 10 to 12 different routines in there. So it's more of like a cabaret show, but super friendly for all audiences. It's gorgeous with the costumes. We make everything in-house, and so everything is super elaborate. It's very cool to wear such elaborate costumes for sure.
And tell me a little bit about how you came to the Moulin Rouge. So you got your start in Brandon, Manitoba. How does a girl from Brandon, Manitoba make their way to Paris and the Moulin Rouge? Tell me that story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Brandon is a very small town, as you know. And so I grew up dancing in Brandon. My whole life started when I was 3 years old. I've been wanting to dance professionally since I was young, but wasn't sure if it was possible as, in Brandon, it's not a career field that's super common. So I moved to Toronto for a professional program there, and it really helped me get to know the dance industry and what it's kind of like, make connections. And I've always dreamed about being on such an iconic stage. So when I saw an audition pop up on my phone, I just knew that I would love just the experience of doing the audition in itself, regardless of the outcomes. And I actually flew to Paris to audition. And so I flew out on a Sunday, got there on the Monday. I had my audition the Tuesday, and then I left on the Wednesday. So really quick trip for sure.
And what was it like when you got that? Like you said, you're probably just, whenever you do an audition, I know there's always that kind of like, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. What was it like when you got the phone call to be like, you made it?
It was very surreal. It was definitely a pinch me moment. I called my family right away, and I was at the audition. They had told us, if you get a phone call sooner rather than later, it's maybe like a thank you, we'll see you next time. And so when I got that call, I was like, oh no. But then they kept talking and said, no, you got the job. We'd love to have you at the Moulin Rouge. And so it was definitely like a big surprise in that sense, but it was definitely like a dream come true for me for sure.
And how intensive a schedule is it for you now that you're in Paris? Is it like every day you're dancing, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so now that I'm in shows, I do 6 days a week, 2 shows a night. So the first show being at 9, and then the next show being at 11:30.
Wow.
Definitely, yeah. You definitely have to adjust your schedule for sure, from rehearsals to show life. yeah, it's definitely like a switch.
Is there any big influences from Brandon you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I grew up dancing at Step and Time Dance Studio, and I would say my biggest influence would probably be my sister, my older sister. I'm a younger sister. I got in dance because of her, and so I definitely looked up to her growing up. But yeah, she is definitely a source of inspiration for me. For sure.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and really appreciate your time and all the best. Thanks for sharing about your new exciting career in Paris.
Yeah, thank you so much.
How's that for a gig, right? Alexa Kay speaking with Corey Funk there. She was in Paris, France during that conversation they talked last week. She is dancing with the Moulin Rouge. She is originally from Brandon. Scott Regier joins us now. How cool, huh? Dancing with the Moulin Rouge.
Super cool, yeah.
All right, let's talk sports and some historic news, actually, to start with from Canadian basketball.
Also cool, yeah, and historic. Hamilton Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Marcy, named MVP of the NBA last night. He thus becomes the second Canadian to win the award after Steve Nash in 2005 and 2006. Accepting the honor last night, without a prepared script, by the way, Gilgeous-Alexander thanked his family and then his teammates, who he gifted shiny new Rolexes, before he said this.
I never thought this was going to happen. I dreamt about it as a kid, but it's like as a kid, it's a fake dream. But as the days go on and you realize that, like, you get closer to your dream, it's hard to not freak out. It's hard to, like, not be a 6-year-old kid again. And I think that's what's allowed me to achieve it. I try to just not focus on it and just worry about what's got me to this place, which is just working hard and trusting the things that I've done to get me to this place.
And Shea, Marcy, really practices what he preaches because despite his considerable wealth and fame, he returns home to Hamilton every summer where his high school teammates try to replicate NBA defenses in helping try to find ways for Shea to improve. And clearly it's working. He's just 26. He's the veteran leader of the youngest team in the NBA. And this Oklahoma City squad just finished arguably the best regular season we've ever seen. Now they're busy bullying their way to the final. Only 3 point guards have ever won an MVP award and then won the championship in the same season. Their names, Steph Curry, Bob Cousy, Magic Johnson. So some Canadians are asking right now, is Shea already better than Steve Nash as the best ever from our country? But there is another question. Is the Hamilton native en route to becoming the greatest point guard we've seen, regardless of nationality? To be determined. Right now, Shea's just focused on Game 2 of the Western Final tonight against Minnesota. Meanwhile, Indiana, which has a history of winning drama-filled contests against the Knicks, think Reggie Miller, they opened the Eastern Final by doing just that last night. Absolute mayhem at Madison Square Garden.
I love that story about his high school friends. You know, you need your peeps to keep you humble, right?
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the Jets season. It may be over, but let's talk hockey rather. Still, of course, lots going on. I know that Dallas won last night. I don't know if I should feel good about that or not. I'm cheering for the Oilers now, you know, as a good Canadian.
Yeah, and you're not alone. The Oilers looked to be cruising in this when they were ahead 3-1, Marcy, and in the third period, there was a litany of penalties, and they didn't kill any of them off, and they ended up losing 6-3. So the Oilers will try to be more disciplined tomorrow night as they try to tie up the series. We have tonight the second game of the PWHL final, where St. Anne's Jocelyn Rock and her Ottawa Charge try to take a 2-0 lead over Minnesota. And just a quick note about the Jets. GM Kevin Cheveldayoff met with the press yesterday, and among other things said he wants pending free agent Nick Ehlers to be a Jet for life. So something to look out for there.
And let's finish with an international sports event that was announced yesterday that's going to that will not be confused with the Olympics.
The first all-drug Olympics open today in Bogota, Colombia. Athletes are allowed to take any substance whatsoever. So far, 115 world records have been shattered.
Okay, that's a clip from Saturday Night Live back in the 80s, Marcy. Yesterday, life imitated art. The first ever enhanced games were officially announced. The sports festival is going to allow its athletes to benefit from performance-enhancing drugs and will be held next year in Las Vegas. Among its supporters, Victor Conti, the founder of Balco, a lab that supplied performance-enhancing drugs to athletes like Marion Jones and Barry Bonds.
there is an appetite for freakish sports performances. Sports Illustrated did a survey asking would they rather see a new world record in the men's 100 meters, knowing that the athlete was juiced to the gills. A resounding 70% said, give me the new world record, knowing that the athlete's juiced to the gills.
If that has you shaking your head right now, you're not alone. I know the World Anti-Doping Agency, as you would expect, is adamantly against this. The inaugural Enhanced Games to feature swimming, track and field, and weightlifting in Sin City next Memorial Day weekend.
No comment. All right. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
And with that, I just commented. Still ahead, we're going to take a swing at an old game and find out why a West St. Paul resident actually is creating replicas of wooden golf clubs. So a bit of a sports story coming up from our community reporter after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30, 7 degrees, beautiful sunshine out there. Just a gorgeous day on the way. Sunny with a high of 20, but don't forget tonight we do have a risk of frost. So if you've got some bedding plants out, you may want to cover them up. Former Premier Heather Stefanson is not apologizing after Manitoba's ethics commissioner said she violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner's report says Stefanson and two of her PC cabinet ministers acted improperly after losing the 2023 election. It says all three pushed for the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new NDP government took office. The report recommends Stefanson, former Deputy Premier Cliff Cullen, and then Economic Development Minister Jeff Wharton be fined thousands of dollars. Stefanson says she did nothing wrong and was simply doing her job. Wharton, the only one of the three who still holds elected office, apologized late last night and says he never intended to breach parliamentary convention. A Manitoba mother hopes the province expands eligibility for the measles vaccine as cases continue to rise. The province has announced 16 new cases since last week. Last week, the province also expanded eligibility for vaccines to 6 and 12-month-old children in the Interlake Eastern and Southern Health regions. That's where most cases and exposures in Manitoba have been located. But Chelsea Winston says her 9-month-old daughter can't be vaccinated yet because they live outside those two regions.
Because already now just in May, we've had such an increase. So what is next month going to look like? So over the summer, it's definitely more scary. I feel like we might be a little bit more isolated to just certain different playgroups.
A provincial medical officer of health tells CBC News babies under about 12 months may have some immunity through their mothers if they were previously infected with measles or vaccinated against it. The province says for now it is not expanding vaccine eligibility to other regions. This summer will look a lot different for some cabin owners in Nopaming Provincial Park. The province says around 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed in the massive Bird River wildfire. John and Lorraine Podwarniak got a call from Manitoba Parks last week saying their family cabin is gone. John built and shared that cabin with a friend and spent decades enjoying it with his own children and grandchildren.
We kind of expected it, but it was hard. It was just like you're numb.
The Podwarniaks have yet to see the damage for themselves. They plan to go to the lake as a family to see what's left when it's safe to visit. The province says an additional 19 structures at seasonal sites at Black Lake also burned. The Israeli government calls it a dangerous escalation of anti-Semitism. 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. were shot and killed last night outside the Capitol Jewish Museum.
Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Millicom, 2 young representatives of the State of Israel, were murdered a few hours ago in an horrific terrorist attack in Washington.
Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar identified the victims of last night's shooting. He says there is a direct line between the attack and rising anti-Semitism around the world since the October 7th attacks. A 31-year-old suspect was arrested at the scene and was heard shouting, "Free Palestine," as he was being taken into custody. Pressure appears to be mounting on Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to fire his national campaign manager Jenny Byrne. Radio-Canada has spoken to 12 Conservative caucus members who say many in the party blame Byrne for the Conservatives' election defeat. There are complaints of what is being called her toxic behavior at campaign headquarters, with others saying there was poor communication between her office and the Conservative teams out in the field. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Manitoba's largest school division had to scramble as it welcomed a surge of newcomers into its classrooms this year. Winnipeg School Division saw a bump of 829 students from the previous academic year. Superintendent Matt Henderson says the increase led some schools to make last-minute hires and repurpose parts of libraries into new classrooms.
We don't often anticipate 800 more students coming into our schools year after year, but because we were receiving so many newcomers from different parts of the world, that's a little harder for us to predict.
In terms of sheer numbers, Winnipeg School Division saw the largest growth in this year's provincial enrollment report. Thompson will be getting a new airport in December. The existing terminal servicing the northern city is decades old, sinking into the ground, and doesn't meet regulations. Curtis Ross heads up the Thompson Airport Authority.
We sit on discontinuous permafrost, so it was a Transport Canada run facility, and they've tried many times to remediate, and it keeps settling. So at some point in time, it will be abandoned.
Ross says in the meantime, that old terminal could still be used for training, but eventually will be put out of commission. Thompson's new airport opens in December. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells live in our news center at CBC Manitoba this morning. It is time for our regional forecast. Let's have a look around the province at the weather with Abby Adiemi.
Good morning once again. We have smoke in the air in the Interlake and eastern parts of the province due to that fire near the Nopaming Provincial Park. This is spreading and it's causing poor air quality and low visibility. If you are in Gimli and all the way down to the Whiteshell area, you will notice smoke in the air. And this special air quality statement is in effect for the region. Now, in other parts of the province, we're looking at the weather is shaping up to be mostly sunny and mild with calm breeze, and then we'll see clear skies all the way from down south, tracking it north. Winnipeg at this point, sunny and clear. We're seeing temperatures around 9 degrees, warming up to 20. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region from Morden, Winkler, Alton, and Morris. Sunny, we're seeing temperatures around 7 at this time, also touching 20 degrees. Later in the day with some light northeast breeze. Brandon is currently at 4 degrees this morning and mainly sunny. Today will stay bright. Highs will get close to 20 degrees. You're going to see, I'm seeing 19 degrees for now. In the Parkland region, Dauphin is sitting at 4 degrees and sunny. Expect clear skies today, highs near 21, and mild southerly winds will be noticed. Overall, it's a nice day in the Parkland. In Gimli, where we have that air quality statement, temperatures around 9 degrees at this point. That statement is in effect due to that smoke in the region. Expect sunshine through the day, and highs will warm up to 20 degrees. Now we track conditions in the northern part of the province. The powerful influence around an area 7 degrees, warming up to 20. Thompson is currently partly sunny at this time, 5 degrees, warming up also to 20. And then further north in Churchill, we're still seeing that misty condition and freezing fog with temperatures around stuck at -4 this time. It's going to stay mostly cloudy for most of the day, and high will only get to 8 degrees. So it's warm and sunny in the south and cool and cloudy up north.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in the morning commute. It's been, it had been pretty quiet. What do you know now, Corey?
Yeah, still fairly quiet. I did get a call from Shelley, who was coming down from the Interlake, actually. Abby mentioned that air quality warning. She actually sent a video along of, you can see it on YouTube, of just coming through. It's a bit hazy, you could see as you kind of making your way. She's coming down Highway 8, heading towards
We're
Winnipeg
looking at it now if you're watching on YouTube, actually.
Yeah,
Yep.
so just heads up there. I mean, you can probably smell it in the air, I'm guessing, too. But if you see anything else going on out there, be like Shelley. Give me a call. You can even send me a video. Why not? We can set that up if you see something going on. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
We should actually tell people what we're doing next week because we have something in the works. So we've obviously been covering the wildfires. It's unprecedented in this province. province. What we've been seeing at this scale and in a number of different places, and of course the losses of people's, not just cottages, but also homes. And so we're going to be going back to Lac de Bonnie on Tuesday.
But this time we're actually be heading to where the fire was. We're going to be hopefully, the plan is to be in the area talking to people as they're heading back. A lot of people there know people who have lost their homes, their properties. They know the people who died. And we're going to be talking with them and getting their stories of how they've been impacted and what they want to see moving forward.
A couple homeowners have been generous enough to allow us to set up on their property to do the show, actually. So we don't have exactly confirmed where we'll be yet, but we'll let you know. It is Tuesday morning live. And the other thing is the texture of that program is going to be about, yes, the stories, the evacuations, the loss. But there will also be a lot of heartfelt stories about the heroes, the helpers, the volunteers. A lot of people now coming out with these just incredible stories of those people that saved their properties. Even I know there were some volunteer firefighters, for example, lots of them around all the different areas of Manitoba. But in the Lac du Bonnie area, you got to remember that's your friends and neighbors and that are volunteering to do this. So during the fires, we're now hearing stories of people who are getting, updates from, volunteer firefighters who were saying, by the way, I was at your house and I was standing there with a hose and it's still standing. And I mean, those connections that are made between people are going to just even deepen the sense of community in these different fire areas all over the province. But we're going to be back in Lac de Bonnie on Tuesday.
Yeah, so many stories to uncover there.
Yeah.
And a lot of inspiring ones and sad ones. And we're going to try to get them all.
So we're heading out on Monday. If you are listening and you have a story to share, maybe you have someone you want to thank, or you want your story to be part of our broadcast moving forward, or maybe you have something to tell us about, there's been some concerns raised as well about, some of the notification systems looking province-wide about how we could do better. You can always let us know if you have something to pitch. So 788-3205, 788-3205 as Information Radio once again hits the road. It is 7:41 a.m. right now, though, and speaking of sports, because we were just talking to Scott Regehr before the news, let's talk about golf. But let's talk about golf today. So today, if you're a golfer, I'm a golfer, you have these steel golf clubs, of course, all the latest tech. Every year they come out with something new, these huge heads on our drivers that help us out. Well, that's very different from the old wooden golf clubs that were used more than 100 years ago with the tiny little head on it. A West St. Paul resident has made it his mission to breathe new life, though, into those old golf clubs. He hit the fairway with CBC Manitoba community reporter Shannalee Vidal.
That's Kelly Leonard teeing off in historical fashion. For more than 20 years, he's been creating replicas of golf clubs from the 1600s to the 1920s. These old school clubs are handmade out of wood.
I just fell in love with these clubs, like the look, the shape, it was just gorgeous.
With a background as a golfer and a furniture maker, Leonard brings his two passions together. It all started when he just happened to see a photo of a hickory golf club and was awestruck.
Well, I forgot what I was doing, but I can remember what I did. I took a mental image of the club and I came out to the shop and I just started putting material together to build it. And I built my first club, which looked nothing like the club. At the time, I thought I nailed it, right? But no, I was so far off. It was hideous. But that spurred me on to do another one and another one. This is your shaft, primarily made from hickory. Prior to hickory, ash was used. Within the head, you have a few components. We need to bring the weight up because the wood is just not heavy enough. This is heavy, but it's not heavy enough. So what I have to do is I have to create a pocket or a cavity in the back of the club. And then I have to pour molten lead in it. And this lead has to be anchored so that it doesn't come out. We apply a ram's horn slip, which is the horn from a ram's horn. And that goes here, which is very hard. So this will protect the leading edge of the golf club. It's easy enough to do it by hand, but it takes time to understand everything that's going on, the grain direction in the head.
The game of modern golf with steel clubs and a dimpled ball has been around for 100 years. Originally, golf balls were stuffed with feathers and were not very durable. In the mid-1800s, the game changed with balls made out of hardened tree sap. They were mass-produced, making the sport affordable to many people.
Now in this one, it might be hard to see, but this one has a leather insert. It's very hard. It's harder than the wood. The clubs were taking a beating with the harder golf ball, so club makers were probably doing a couple of these every day. The key is when you make good contact with these clubs with just a nice, well-tempoed swing, the results are there.
Unlike modern golf clubs, there's no two hickory golf clubs that play exactly the same. And Kelly Leonard says that learning curve is all part of the joy of the game. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, West St. Paul.
All right, Shanley, if you were watching that video, she had a pretty good hit at the end there. You might have heard it on the radio here. Something else Shanley Vidal learned, our community reporter, is that the golf courses nowadays are much longer as well than the ones in days gone by. And of course, that's because the balls are often hit a lot farther when we use all that modern tech that helps us when we're out on the courses. And they've been in beautiful shape this year because of that early warm spell. It's 7:45 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Corey Funk, Sierra Sanders, Brad Lillies, and Abby Adiyemi behind the glass on our team. Heather Wells in your news center, and your next local headlines coming up just before 8 o'clock. As I mentioned, right now it's 1:45. One of the things in the news this morning is measles. I want to mention that after 8 o'clock on the show, the number of confirmed measles cases is now sitting at 60 in Manitoba. This is a big jump from 12 just last month. We're going to talk to a pediatric infectious disease specialist to address some parents' concerns. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock on the program. Next on the show, we have a bit of music. Manitoba Music has been putting out something called the Song of the Week. So we get a bit of a preview to new music by different songwriters. So today, Winnipeg singer-songwriter Shay Wolf, who's actually going to officially release a single later this summer when everything's a little sunnier than it has been, although today's gorgeous. For now, though, we have the first listen. This is courtesy of Manitoba Music. Here's Shay Wolf and Sunny Days.
Sunny days, sunny days, come find me, sunny days. Sweet honey child, the rain has come and it's pouring.
Sunny Days by Winnipeg singer-songwriter Shea Wolf. You can thank Manitoba Music for the preview of that one. It's actually officially coming out later this year. But Manitoba Music has been doing this really cool Song of the Week. And this week, it's this one. It is 11 minutes to 8 o'clock, and we're certainly enjoying some sun this morning. My next guest just came in from outside and said it's gorgeous out there. It was last night as well. We were out playing baseball and slow pitch. Got creamed, but just enjoyed the night. Beautiful out there. Mainly sunny right now and 9 degrees in Winnipeg. Our high today is going to be 20. And as I've been telling you, it's going to stay sunny right through next Wednesday if this forecast holds. And our highs are going to be between 20 and 27 degrees. So we've got some nice weather really socked in now. In Brandon and in Brandon and Thompson, it's actually the same situation. So sunshine through next Wednesday in Brandon, highs of 19 to 31. And then Thompson's looking for sun and highs of 19 to 30. Farther north, there's some cloud cover, but really over much of the province, just some beautiful clear skies. Well, next on the show, let's return to Canada Post and the story that we've been covering. Workers are anxiously waiting for news from their union about the possibility of going on strike as of midnight. Canada Post yesterday denied the Canadian Union of Postal Workers' proposal to delay a potential strike. The union had proposed a 2-week pause. The new offer, though, proposes a new 14% wage increase over a 4-year period. It also proposes 6 personal days to be locked into the next collective agreement. So the union's now reviewing that. If the two sides, though, don't come to an agreement today, Canada Post workers are going to the picket line again. This will be the second time in 6 months. But remember, that pause happened in December. So effectively, it's the same issues that are being dealt with. So yesterday on the show, we heard from one letter carrier, Mike Brancagnier, who says he loves his job, but he is critical of the union for issuing a strike notice. He doesn't think another strike is necessary.
I don't know a single letter carrier that wants to go back out on the picket line. It feels like we're biting the hand that feeds so often. It's so frustrating.
Well, today we have another perspective from another postal worker. Matthew Aitken is in studio. He's been delivering mail in Winnipeg for the last 14 years. He says the last strike was difficult, yes, but he does stand with the union on this one, and he joins us now live. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about how you're feeling should you have to go out and that call happens at midnight tonight.
Well, I mean, I don't think that Mike is wrong, and I don't think a lot of postal workers are excited about going on strike. Removing your labor from the market is a last resort that workers go to when the two sides that are supposed to be negotiating a contract for them can't agree. Everybody's got financial anxiety. People are talking about just having stress while they're out walking their routes, while they're at work, and nobody wants to continue the strike.
What was your reaction when you saw that the strike notice came out? Because there were, one of the concerns we heard yesterday was that there wasn't a revote that happened, that, this is happening now. They didn't have another vote now for this strike action. They're looking at the results of November. Do you think there should have been another vote at this time or not?
Well, the government of Canada put the Canadian Union of Postal Workers in a really unique position. From what I understand, no union has ever been forced to pause a labor action. So this wasn't a second strike. This isn't a second strike. This is a paused strike. That's never happened in Canada before. I'm not sure what the status would be internationally. But there was no need to take a second strike vote because the job action is still on, essentially. So the government forced us into this position. And, if people are frustrated with not taking a second vote, I think, a lot of political parties in Canada would probably like to hear from them.
If you should have to hit the picket line, what will you be thinking about in terms of why you would support the strike action and what you'd be hoping for as a worker?
Well, I mean, I think when workers have to hit the picket line, it's very difficult. It's very confusing. It's and for those of us who are children of divorce, it's like reliving the trauma. Why can't mom and dad just get along? We've been placed in this situation by the government. Workers are really have their fates tied to these groups of people that don't work with us. Essentially, the negotiating committees of both sides. And they have a lot of time to come up with these negotiated agreements. And so when workers are forced to go on strike, that really is the last possible resort. How these organizations and the Canadian government have let this go on for so long is it's really questionable.
What are the issues you care about that you're hoping your union will put you in a better position for?
Well,
Like, is it pay? Is it working for future rights of workers?
So pay is always going to be an issue, right? The cost of things keeps going up, and I think all workers everywhere deserve a cost of a raise that matches the cost of living, or at least comes close, right? You know, if inflation goes up 10% and you only get a 5% raise, well, that's a 5% decrease in your overall spending power for the year. Last year, postal workers went on strike for 5 weeks. Well, you only work 52 weeks in a year. That's 10%. That was 10% of our annual income that was gone. And so when we get a raise of 5% on that year, but we had to strike for 5 weeks to get it, well, we really lost 5%. So wages are always an issue. And I think, I think both negotiating committees are coming close to an agreement on those wages. However, there was a report released last week on the state of Canada Post, and it was said that Canada Post is in an existential crisis.
It's been losing money since 2018, yep.
Losing money since 2018.
And it's not fighting back against the parcel services. There's actually a whole detailed article on CBC,
Yep. And there was a great article in the Canadian Press yesterday as well. But it doesn't tell you that Canada Post was making money steadily for 20 years before that. It doesn't tell you that Canada Post, when it has profits, they would go back to the Canadian government and back to the taxpayer.
Do you think it's still viable though under this certain model, or do you everyone's talking about modernizing it for the future? So maybe I should ask, obviously it needs to be in some way. But how much? Or are you thinking that maybe that's not necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I think even with the years that I've been with the corporation, I think, we've definitely seen some changes. And how viable is it to have somebody go up an icy set of steps to deliver a solicitation from a charity in the middle of winter? So I think there do have to be some changes to the delivery model, and that's a hard reality that both the corporation and the union have to face. But also, these are going to require acts of Parliament. In the Canada Post Act guarantees daily delivery of mail to every address in Canada, and so it's not like flipping a switch is going to change how mail gets delivered in this country.
It's a bigger picture.
There's a lot of items that need to be considered.
I want to ask you this: how do you think the last strike influenced public trust of Canada Post, and what's that like as a worker?
Well, as a worker, it's really terrible, actually, because, when you're out there on the picket line and people are driving up, literally giving you the finger and telling you to get back to work, you wonder where civil solidarity has gone. Like, aren't you driving to work and going to do your job for your employer every day? Like, why would you take less from your employer? If it doesn't make sense. But there's also I don't think that the union did a really good enough job of getting to the media and putting out our side of the story leading up to this fight. Last year the corporation started coming out early in the year saying like it was experiencing some financial trouble, and the union never really seemed to get ahead of that story in the press. And so we were really chasing it. When we went on strike in 2018, there was a program that had been running for 3 years called Save Canada Post, and it was very popular. We had our national president went on national tours to promote this program. And when that strike came around in 2018, people knew about the post office. They knew about the struggles that we were facing, and they heavily supported us. That connection, having a public-facing a campaign for the union, just has not been there since 2018. And we're seeing the results of that in action by our union on the picket line.
We'll see what happens at midnight tonight, Matthew. Thank you so much for being here with your perspective. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's Matthew Aitken. He is a letter carrier with Canada Post. So we will all see what happens. Midnight is the deadline now. Let's go to Heather Wells, who is with us now with morning headlines at 3 minutes to 8.
Good morning. Well, people who have lost cabins in Nopaming Provincial Park are hanging on tight to their memories. John and Lorraine Podwarniak's place at Beresford Lake was destroyed in the Bird River wildfire. They're not sure if they'll rebuild. The province says 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed. Former Premier Heather Stephenson isn't apologizing after Manitoba's ethics commissioner said she violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner's report says Stephenson and two of her PC cabinet ministers acted improperly after losing the 2023 election, saying all three pushed for the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new government took power. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Winnipeg's 9, Brandon's 4, Thompson's 5. It's sunny in Winnipeg and Brandon, partly cloudy up in Thompson. Winnipeg will head to a high of 20 degrees. Air quality statement has been issued for the Interlake and Eastman, so take it easy. That's, of course, because of the smoke and the air quality. of course. In traffic, been pretty good. 788-3093 if you do need us. Still ahead, we're going to dig into the measles story. A pediatric infectious disease specialist joins us after 8 to address some parental concerns, as we've been hearing on the news.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. The show The Gilmore Girls put Yannick Truesdale on the map as an actor when its creator Amy Sherman Palladino called him up 20 years later to join her new show Étoile. Yannick jumped at the chance.
When you have some validation sprinkled here and there, you're really appreciative of it.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A week before Christmas, 3 years ago, a group of teen girls swarmed a homeless man in downtown Toronto. Kenneth Lee was fatally stabbed. The story of the crime and how it made it through the justice system coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Millicom, two young representatives of the State of Israel, were murdered a few hours ago in an horrific terrorist attack in Washington.
Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar identifying the victims in last night's shooting. The two employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington were killed in the U.S. Capitol. Sa'ar says there is a direct line between the attack and rising anti-Semitism around the world since the October 7th attacks. Steve Futterman has the details.
The killings took place outside of Washington's Capitol Jewish Museum, where a reception was taking place for diplomats. Washington, D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum.
The motive for the shooting appears to be connected with the ongoing war in Gaza. As the suspect was apprehended, he began shouting, "Free, free Palestine!" This person encountered the suspect after the shooting. He spoke with the BBC.
He's like, I did this for Gaza, free Palestine. There's only one solution, Intifada revolution.
The two people killed were a couple who worked at the Israeli embassy. Here's Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Yahiel Leiter.
It's a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says prosecutors are already on the case.
We will follow the facts, we will follow the law, and this defendant, if charged, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement, "We are witnessing the terrible price of anti-Semitism against Israel." Donald Trump spoke with the Israeli ambassador on the phone and expressed condolences. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Members of Canada's Conservative Party are still smarting over their Liberal election loss, and many have told our colleagues at Radio-Canada they want to see changes at the top, starting with Pierre Poilievre firing his national campaign manager, Jenny Byrne. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what have we learned?
Marcia, our Radio-Canada colleague, Christiane Noël, spoke to 12 Conservatives, did not name them, enabling them to speak frankly, and they were scathing, saying after the Conservatives blew a double-digit lead in the polls to lose the election, heads have to roll. And yet there hasn't been any accountability from National Campaign Manager Jenny Byrne, a private contractor whose exact job, now that the general election is over, is unclear, except that she's personally tight with Pierre Poilievre. Radio-Canada heard that she treats people like, quote, garbage, that her behavior at party headquarters was toxic and angry, that she didn't communicate well with teams in the field. Byrne is apparently responsible for Poilievre's negative tone because everything one said is a war for her. And she's blamed for Poilievre's strained relationship with provincial premiers like Doug Ford and Tim Houston. One said if she remains, they can't support the leaders staying on. Another said if she remains, the caucus may lose patience. And this caucus has enabled its ability under the Reform Act to vote on whether to remove its leader as the parliamentary session proceeds. When caucus met 2 weeks ago, Poilievre brushed aside questions about burns, saying Conservatives won't grow by excluding people. He will face a review vote at the party's next convention, an event not scheduled until next year, but Poilievre loyalists are now pushing to move it up to this fall and move it out to a venue in Alberta where his support's stronger. If the convention endorses him, it would be harder for MPs to justify removing him.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Stellantis says it is putting the production of the Canadian-made Charger Daytona on hold for the 2026 model year. The company says it needs time to assess the effects of U.S. tariffs. The vehicle is made at the Stellantis assembly plant in Windsor, Ontario. A U.S. federal judge is admonishing the White House for deporting 8 people to South Sudan against court orders. Several of those people do not have Sudanese citizenship, and the judge says they were deported without due process. The Trump administration says all 8 were convicted of violent crimes. Now police in South Sudan say those who do not have citizenship will be deported again. Here is spokesperson James Mande.
When they arrive, they will be investigated, the truth will be established, and it will be again deported to their correct country. The result of the investigation will determine the action.
The acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says some of the deportees are from Cuba, Laos, Mexico, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Todd Lyons says their home countries would not take them back. There's been another unusual twist in the sexual assault trial of 5 former Team Canada hockey players. It involves a witness for the prosecution and his inability to remember details that would harm his former World Junior teammates. Karen Pauls has more.
Brett Howden is a key player for the Vegas Golden Knights, but in a London courtroom, his testimony is under scrutiny. He's a Crown witness and has not been charged, but the prosecution says he's pretending not to remember details that would hurt his former World Junior teammates, details he has already provided in previous statements to investigators, details the Crown wants on the record. The judge ruled late Wednesday that Howden is not feigning or being insincere, but agreed there are some inconsistencies in his testimony. The Crown wants permission to challenge him on that.
Because the evidence that was coming out at trial was not what they anticipated.
Criminal defense lawyer Sam Puhala isn't involved in the case, but is watching it closely.
Through cross-examination, you can suggest answers. Here's what you said in your statement. Here's what you were saying earlier.
Nick Cake is a former Crown prosecutor, now a criminal defense lawyer who's also following this trial. He's not surprised memories have faded.
And the witness's memory, of course, is of paramount importance. It all goes to their credibility and their reliability. But we're talking to people who witnessed something way back in 2018, and they're now being asked to remember what it is they said to someone about that in 2018.
Both lawyers say it's important to have these legal discussions to make sure all the evidence is being presented and the law is being applied to try and prevent appeals later on. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Quebec's official bird could soon be listed as an at-risk species. An independent committee of wildlife scientists recommended the designation for the snowy owl in their latest report. As Gloria Enriquez tells us, climate change is among the factors contributing to the bird's decline.
A 3-year-old snowy owl is perking up as a vet carries him to the examination room. The owl is recovering at the Université de Montréal's Veterinary Center after Dr. Guy Fitzgerald and his team had to amputate his wing.
Pretty good evolution of the wound.
The wing was damaged when the bird flew into a fence, just one of the many dangers snowy owls face, and that Dr. Fitzgerald says have led it to being identified as a threatened species.
We see lots of snowy owls hit by cars, they can hit power lines.
Other factors include climate change affecting their habitats. The snowy owl nests in the Arctic and breeds mostly on the tundra, but ventures further south in the winter when prey in the north becomes scarce. It can be found in every province and territory in Canada, but experts say its population has been steadily declining.
By over 40%.
Louise Blight was part of the independent committee that evaluated the animal's risk as threatened.
It's in the position of potentially becoming endangered in future, so we should be concerned about that.
The snowy owl isn't on Canada or Quebec's lists of threatened species yet, but a spokesperson for the provincial government told CBC that it will be evaluating the status of the bird and what steps to take next. Back in the clinic, the owl is recovering and will eventually be sent to a wildlife refuge or a zoo. Gloria Enriquez, CBC News, Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec.
Students graduating from University of Maryland receive their diplomas tonight. They are about to enter the workforce at a time of economic uncertainty and political turmoil, but they will be getting some valuable advice at their commencement address from this guy.
Your life is in your hands, and nobody can make you a success except you. Believing in others is easy, but it's believing in yourself and your dreams that's the real trick.
Kermit the Frog speaking to CNN there, and why not give him the commencement address? He is an environmental advocate, a best-selling author, and an international superstar. Plus, his Muppets creator Jim Henson graduated from Maryland back in 1960. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. Nice and sunny in downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live in our CBC studios, and it's going to be sunny for the whole day. Thanks for joining us. This half hour of the program, we're getting some reaction to Canada Post. Midnight is the strike deadline. We'll see what happens. We've had workers on sharing their different perspectives on what it will be like to be back on the picket line. So this hour, we're going to hear one of our listener lines that came in from you, as we had an interview just before 8 about this. Also, you might have been hearing in the news what's been going on with measles. The number of confirmed cases is now sitting at 60 in Manitoba. Now, that's a big jump from 12. That's where we were just last month. A pediatric infectious disease specialist is our guest this half hour to address some of the parental concerns that we've been hearing across the province here. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead on Information Radio on CBC. Here's Heather Wells now with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, this summer is going to look a lot different for some cabin owners in Nopaming Provincial Park. The province says around 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed in that massive Bird River wildfire. John and Lorraine Podwarniak got a call from Manitoba Parks telling them their family cabin is gone. John says he feels numb and at this point is not sure if he will rebuild. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Let's get into what's happening in the weather now. Abby has details on, well, still an air quality statement, right?
Yep, that's still in effect for eastern Manitoba and the Interlake region, impacting mostly folks in Gimli. They're spotting it this morning due to that fire near the Nopaming Park. And I expect hazy skies and reduced visibility in those areas. But for Winnipeg at this point, it's sunny. It's 11 degrees. It's going to be bright and mild. We're going to see highs near 21, but I see 20 here. And tonight stays mostly clear with cool temperatures rolling in overnight. We're going to get to 3 degrees, so if you have your plants out, there might be a bit of a frosty situation that you want to deal with, so you want to break them inside. Brandon, Duff, and Gimli, we're seeing sunny starts, also warming up close to 20 degrees, while up north, the Power, Flin Flon, Thompson, sunshine, highs around 20, and Churchill still staying at -3 right now with freezing fog.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is in to talk about the commute on your Thursday morning. What do we know?
Yeah, got a call from Ron on the commuter line. He said there's
Hi, Ron.
There's a stalled pickup on northbound Archibald, right near the Access Storage area, right there, that business. It's in the right lane, and there's starting to be some backups already. Kind of cars going one at a time. So slow going on northbound Archibald near the Access Storage there. If you see anything else, be like Ron. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. 204-788-3093.
You can say it louder,
okay.
Slower. I'm sorry.
204-788-3093.
Sorry, Corey.
No problem.
I'm jumping on Corey to get to another thing, and that is actually a call we got in another line. That is the listener line, which is 788-3205. This one's about Canada Post.
Hi, my name's DJ Oaks Monroe, and what I'd like to say is that I think the fundamental disconnect between all of the parties and between the public in general is whether Canada Post is a business or a service. And because of the nature of Canada geographically, sociologically, the way that our communities are spread out, we absolutely have to consider Canada Post to be a service. It is not going to turn a profit. It has to be able to ship vital things to the north, to rural communities. I don't mind having to go to a super mailbox as somebody who lives in an urban community, but we can't continue with this, it has to be able to compete with the for-profit parcel services. We can't do that. Canada Post is a service, it's a government service, and we have to expect that taxpayers are going to pay for that. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned at the top of the clock here, at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, the number of people being exposed to measles is creeping up in Manitoba. There are now 60 confirmed cases. That is a big jump from the 12 last month. Babies and people with compromised immune systems continue to be most at risk. Now, Canada's immunization guide recommends children get their first dose of the measles vaccine after their first birthday. Last week, though, the province expanded the vaccine eligibility, allowing babies as young as 6 months to get immunized, but only for those who live in the Southern Health and Interlake Eastern region. That is where most of our cases are in Manitoba currently. CBC's Rosanna Hempel, you may have heard this on the news, spoke with Samantha Joyce. She's a concerned first-time mom. She lives in the rural municipality of Rockwood. Her baby is 3 months old, making her little girl too young to be eligible for vaccination. And she welcomes the eligibility expansion with open arms, but she is disappointed her child will not yet be able to get the shot.
I am happy about that. She's still a ways off from that, sadly. I do hope that maybe if they lower it a bit more, if it's safe for them, I would get her vaccinated sooner if possible. I don't bring her out in public very often. If I can, I do leave her at home or with somebody who can babysit her, and I'm not thrilled about it. I do want to, bring my baby out in public, and the weather is getting warmer, and I want to go to public places with my child that offer things for babies and just be interactive with her. And I'm worried of bringing her out. I don't want her to get sick. I'm really scared about that.
Some parents across the province are echoing Joyce's concerns. So our next guest is going to walk us through some of the medical information about babies and measles and vaccines. Dr. Anna Banerjee is with us via Zoom, offering some advice and answering some questions here. She's a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the Temerty Faculty of Medicine and Dalla Luna School of Public Health at the University of Toronto. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
So in your opinion, would it be safe for babies younger than 6 months to get vaccinated against the measles? Help us understand why they were excluded in the first place.
So if you vaccinate, they usually have it at 1 year of age, because that's when a baby's most likely to respond, have a good immune response. If you do it too young, the babies may not respond. Now, around the world, typically they give the measles vaccine at 9 months of age, and that is pretty standard. But at 6 months of age is unusual, and you only do that if there's an outbreak going on. I wouldn't recommend younger than 6 months of age.
Okay, you say they may not respond. What does that mean? That the vaccine might not work, or they may have a reaction?
The vaccine may not work, and then if you give it at a later age, they may not get the long-term immunity that we're hoping that they get. So at a certain point, they might think that vaccine is not a vaccine, but it's part of their natural environment, and may have a decreased response to the vaccine. And so 6 months is a lower limit.
Okay, so it's pretty critical, actually, that the baby's immune system, it sounds like, medically is developed before the vaccine is administered.
That's right.
What can parents do to keep their babies safe if they're too young to be vaccinated?
So cocoon the baby. Unfortunately, no one wants to keep their babies inside, but try to make sure that if they're associating with other kids, that the kids are vaccinated, and especially if there's an outbreak going on. If there's no measles outbreak going on, then in the local area, they're safer. But if there's an outbreak going on, then you really want to keep that baby away from other babies or other children who are unvaccinated.
So what's your thought on even babies in the province offering it, parents who live in the Southern Health and the Interlake Eastern region to offer the vaccine to babies as young as 6 months old then?
That if there's an outbreak going on, there's transmission going on in that area, it makes sense that at 6 months you can get that first vaccine.
And let's outline why. Is that because the greater risk is measles to a baby that young?
That's right. And so in times of outbreaks, the guidelines say that you can, with a risk of getting measles is higher, you can give it at 6 months of age. That's the lower limit.
Should parents who make that choice be concerned that their children then that the kids won't respond to it, that in the long term their children might have trouble being, with their immunity against measles as you've outlined, because ideally the kids would be 9 months to a year?
So normally it's at 1 year of age, and then again at 18 months or 4 to 5 years, depending on where you live. So what they do is any vaccination before 1 year of age, they ignore. So you're going to get on top of the 6 month vaccine, you're going to get a 1 year vaccine and then an older age vaccine. So you're going to end up having 3 vaccines. This is an extra vaccine. It doesn't replace the 1 year vaccine. So you have the additional benefit of a third vaccine.
But those subsequent vaccines, then the baby system will recognize those, even if it doesn't recognize the first. Okay, I get it. How high are the risk levels in a home where older siblings may be vaccinated but a baby is not?
If the older siblings are vaccinated, they've had 2 vaccines, then the risk is extremely low.
What are some of the early measles symptoms that are observed in babies?
So like older kids, so there's an incubation period. It's between 1 and 3 weeks from the point of exposure. Then you have, it looks like a cold, runny nose, maybe sneezing, coughing, but you have red eyes. You may get little white spots inside of the cheek. And then after, 3 to 5 days, you break out in a rash. The rash starts on the face and goes down to the rest of the body. And most kids get through it and it's not serious, but some kids can get very, very sick with it because it can go to any part of the body. It can cause pneumonia. For some people who are compromised, it can cause problems with deafness, blindness, and it can go into the brain and cause what we call encephalitis. So it can be very serious. And some kids who are younger or compromised might end up in the hospital with measles.
Part of the challenge here is that measles, you could have been exposed 3 weeks earlier. That's usually when symptoms show up. Is that correct, Dr. Banerjee?
That's right.
So it's
That's
like
right.
21 days of an incubation period.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. What should a parent do?
And the other problem is that if someone has measles and they're in a room and they leave that room and you go into that room, the measles can hang in the air for 2 hours. And so you may not know you've been exposed.
Because we came out of a pandemic, I'm going to ask you some protection questions because a lot of people might be thinking, masking, washing hands, all these types of things that we got used to during COVID. Beyond vaccines, I understand we're talking about vaccines, but what do you suggest around measles?
Well, it's really hard to know. I mean, if you may not know that you've been exposed. You might be doing some of those things if you've had an exposure, that you're a known exposure, but it's really hard to contain measles, and because it's not like it's out there in general. So the number one method to control this is the vaccine. The vaccine came out in 1963, and then when a second vaccine was introduced, we went from everyone getting measles, the rates were this high, to nobody getting measles. And so the vaccine is really the most effective way. I wouldn't recommend, unless you're in the middle of an outbreak, of you walking around wearing masks. And the kind of masks you need to wear are really the N95 masks because it's airborne. It's not just droplets, but it lingers in the air. So that the best protection is really vaccination.
What should a parent do if their baby has measles? Like, what's the best course of action? Are you going to the ER right away?
I would call them if you suspect that that child has measles, because you want to make sure that you're protecting people in the emergency department. And so they would go into an isolated room with good ventilation, do the proper testing. And if they suspect it's measles, then that child needs to be at home. Now, if that child is really sick, obviously, then they need to go to the hospital. But again, call and say that, my child has measles or has been exposed to measles, has a rash, etc. And so they can reduce the spread to other people in the emergency department.
If someone has babies as old as 6 months and they're eligible for the vaccine, where can they get their vaccines? What are our rollout programs look like given what's been happening right now?
So I really don't know what's happening in Manitoba. I suspect that there are vaccine clinics through public health. I'm not really sure if they're doing it in schools yet, but those are possibilities. But I think that, in Manitoba, maybe that's something you can find out if there are vaccine clinics, especially in areas of outbreaks. I mean, that would be what I think should happen.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee, for all of this. Anything to add, especially for those parents who have those babies at home and are really concerned that we maybe didn't cover?
So if they're not in an area of outbreak, then the risks are relatively low. The best protection is vaccination, and just making sure that the baby is exposed to people who are vaccinated rather than unvaccinated people or babies. That's the best protection.
Thank you very much for walking us through all of this. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Via Zoom, Dr. Anna Banerjee with us, pediatric infectious disease specialist at the Temerty Faculty of Medicine and Dalla Luna School of Public Health at the University of Toronto. We are just having a look at our latest information from the province of Manitoba. So you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. You can read what the province has said so far about vaccinations, about who's eligible, and also about where you might be able to get your measles vaccine. Now, I know because I'm in the age category that needs a booster, born after 1971. So my doctors told me I need a booster. Maybe you're in the same category for measles. So this is not babies. Now this is adults in a category. But still, where you get the vaccines is going to be by getting information from your family doctor, or you can look at public health clinics as well. But you're going to need to call in advance and make sure that you have your records, because some people, of course, depending on when you were born, will be already fully vaccinated.
The richness of cultures celebrated in film and the action, romance, comedy, and documentaries you love to watch. Fascination Film Festival is coming to Winnipeg, and you're invited. The talents of Asian Canadian and Asian American filmmakers highlighted in one film festival. Connect and get inspired at Fascination Film Festival, May 22nd to 25th, proudly sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Just want to add one more thing to the measles conversation. So the other suggestion, of course, from the province is if you have any confusion about where to get vaccinated and how to proceed, you can always call HealthLinks. They can also answer your questions. So that number for HealthLinks is 1-888-315-9257, 1-888-315-9217. It is 8:26 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. And today on the noon call-in, we're asking you to share your memories of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. So there's a photo exhibit celebrating 50 years of the Folk Fest. It debuts today. You can call in and join the conversation, though, all about Folk Fest memories with guest host Chloe Friesen, and that is right after 12:30 right here on CBC. 8:27 the time, 11 degrees of temperature, sunny out there, and a high of 20 on the way. Well, we have time to slide in a bit of a tune just before the news here at 8:30. And I is the artist who makes music that fuses indie folk, speaking of folk, soul, roots, and blues. Grew up in Brampton, Ontario. This tune is called Until You.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Y'all do that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah. I can't hear y'all. Come on, come on. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. One more time, come on, y'all ain't loud enough. Come on. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There's a comedy show downstairs, and I want to ruin his show by being too loud. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Here we go. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Come on. Oh yeah, yeah. One more time, come on, come on. There ain't much I can give, but I give you everything, yeah. Anything you had, you gave me half. When I was living with nothing, you helped me believe in something. Didn't know where it goes alone on the outside. Every day's a witness, it's about time I found one to keep me warm. I was one of the wandering, trying to fight through the elements. Time stood still when you first walked in. Fate made plans I could never predict. I was empty, lost without a clue. Until now, until you. Come on, everybody, here we go. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Come on, I want everybody clapping. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
Love this. This is I performing Until You at a recent Toronto show. You can hear the crowd in the background. We'll take this right into your CBC Winnipeg News. You want to watch the full concert? Go to CBC Music's YouTube page.
Found me street penniless. You reached down and crowned me king.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's sunny. It's just beautiful morning. 11 degrees is where we're at right now. On our way to a high of 20 this afternoon. There is a risk of frost tonight. PC MLA Jeff Wharton is apologizing after Manitoba's Ethics Commissioner said he violated the province's conflict of interest law. The commissioner says Wharton, former Premier Heather Stephenson, and former Deputy Premier Cliff Cullen acted improperly after losing the 2023 election. It says all three pushed for the approval of a silica sand mining project just before the new NDP government took office. The report recommends they be fined thousands of dollars. Stephenson, for her part, is not apologizing, saying she did nothing wrong and was simply doing her job. But Wharton, the only one of the three who still holds elected office, says he never intended to breach parliamentary convention. A Lockport mom who is concerned about exposing her 3-month-old baby to measles is changing her habits in order to protect her child. Cases of the highly contagious infection in Manitoba continue to climb, the province announcing 16 new cases of measles since last week. At the age of 3 months, Samantha Joyce says her daughter is not eligible to be vaccinated yet.
I am a little anxious. I do want to keep my baby and my other nieces and nephews safe. I really want to get it done as soon as possible. And it does make me a little weary of bringing her out and being around other people.
Canada's immunization guide recommends babies get their first dose of a measles vaccine after their first birthday. Last week, the Manitoba government expanded eligibility to 6 to 12-month-old children in the Interlake Eastern and Southern Health regions. People who have lost cabins in Nopaming Provincial Park are hanging on tighter to memories. John and Lorraine Podwarniak's place at Beresford Lake was destroyed in the Birds River wildfire. That fire has spread to more than 100,000 hectares. John built the cabin with a friend back in the 1970s, and they continued to share it. He says the peace and calm of the park drew him to the area.
It's remoteness. Being able to go up there with the family and enjoy the quiet time, get away from the hustle and bustle, lots of memories.
Podwarniak isn't yet sure if they will rebuild. The province says 20 properties at Beresford Lake have been damaged or destroyed. An additional 19 structures in seasonal sites at Black Lake have also burned in the fire. Well, 2 people were shot and killed, and 2 others were injured in Washington, D.C. at an event at a Jewish museum last night. Both of the victims, a man and a woman, were staffers of the Israeli embassy in D.C., and according to reports, were about to be engaged. Pamela Smith is Washington police chief.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
Smith says a 30-year-old Chicago man was detained following the shooting and arrested. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he expects Israel to fully investigate why members of the Israeli army fired shots in the West Bank near a diplomatic delegation, a delegation that included some Canadians.
The Israeli ambassador has been summoned to Global Affairs to see the minister and explain. We expect a full investigation. We expect a immediate explanation of what happened. It's totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
Israel's military says the diplomatic group deviated from an approved travel route and ended up in a prohibited area. It says soldiers fired warning shots to get them to move. Operations at Canada Post are poised to shut down in less than 24 hours. The union for 55,000 postal workers says the company's latest offers fall short as a midnight deadline for a strike looms. The union says it has identified a number of areas where the offers disappoint, namely on wages and cost of living adjustments. Canada Post's offers amount to a little more than 13% in wage increases over 4 years, where the union was looking for closer to 19% to catch up after years of rampant inflation. The head of a rural school division in southern Manitoba says it is bursting at the seams because of an influx of newcomers. Morden's Western School Division saw an increase of 113 students from the previous year. Superintendent Stephen Ross says that may not sound like a lot compared to larger divisions, but it's left them scrambling to find suitable classrooms and to hire enough staff.
We have been one of the largest by percentage growth school divisions in Manitoba for quite a few years. Because of our size, it doesn't catch as much attention as, a city division that increases 1.5% but has 8,000 students.
The provincial enrollment report says Winnipeg School Division saw the largest increase with 829 new students, but that represents a bump of just over 1%. It compares to a jump of more than 5% in Morden. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Corey.
Look out for a stalled pickup on northbound Archibald right outside Access Storage. It's blocking the right lane. Things starting to get pretty backed up there.
Abby, let's look at the weather.
Down south and even tracking it all the way to Thompson this morning, we're going to see temperatures warm up to 20 degrees. And be advised, we still have that air quality statement in effect for eastern Manitoba and the Interlake region.
Thank you to Leif Larson, senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba, Nellie Gonzalez, show's producer here. Thanks to our live team, Brad Lillies, Abby Adiemi, Corey Funk, and Sierra Sanders, who's going to be soon directing, filling in for Corey for a bit. Our news department, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, and Alana Cole. Also our community reporter with an item in the show today, Shanley Vidal. The associate producers who had items on today's Information Radio, Chidi Akuma, Jenna Badosso, and Sierra Sanders as well. And big thanks to you for listening. We will see you tonight, perhaps. I'm emceeing a dinner, the 16th annual Humankind International Dinner. It supports a Dadaab refugee camp. It was started by 3 Manitobans here. And I know it's always a lovely time at Centre Culturel Franco-Manitobain. So we'll see you in St. B if you're attending. I know it's a lovely annual dinner that brings together friends and family and supporters of this camp and school that's been set up there. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care.